Is it just me that thinks that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mo. Look after yourself. See you later. Molly Green back, of course, she said, sitting in for Sonny and Shane next week. It's Shane sitting in for Iain Lee this morning. It's BBC WN. It's just gone 9. Let's get the news. Here's Nicole Pullman.
5 people are in custody in France this morning following the ending of 2 separate sieges yesterday. The 2 brothers who carried out the attack on the Charlie Hebdo magazine were killed as they attacked police in a town northeast of Paris. Another gunman who'd been holding people at a Jewish supermarket in the capital also died after killing 4 of his hostages. These Parisians said the atmosphere in the city had changed.
I think people are really feeling nervous and a little bit scared. You know, you can see cops almost everywhere, almost every station.
I feel the pressure and I can hear people speaking around like they are a little bit scared.
I think this is our September 11th in Paris. We don't know what's next. It's kind of scary, but you have to just live the life.
A woman has died in a house fire in Birmingham. It happened in Churchill Road yesterday evening. West Midlands Ambulance Service say nothing could be done to save her, and she died at the scene. 52 supporters of the English Defence League have been given jail sentences totalling more than 75 years after violence at a protest in Birmingham. Police officers were attacked during the demonstration in the city centre 18 months ago. The sentences range from community orders to more than 3 years in prison. Detective Chief Inspector Simon Wallace spoke to BBC WM.
They engaged in wanton violence, throwing bricks, hurling anything they could find at the police, at members of the public, causing damage, and certainly this is the culmination of a lot of them getting their comeuppance.
2 men are missing after apparently going swimming in the sea at Brighton, where there are gale-force winds and very high waves. Here, so far, there have been no reports of major damage caused by the wind overnight. Aston Villa will be seeking to record a league double over Leicester City when they visit the King Power Stadium this afternoon for our commentary game on BBC WM 95.6. Paul Lambert's side were 2-1 victors when the 2 teams met at Villa Park in early December. The Villa boss is full of admiration for the job being done by his opposite number, Nigel Pearson. And although Leicester are bottom of the table, Lambert isn't expecting an easy ride.
Tough game. We had a good game here a month or so ago, and Nigel's come through a hard time, and we've done great with Leicester last year as well and get them up into the league, so that'll be a tough game. We're playing well at the minute, we just need to finish 8 chances and to open teams up.
The weather very windy all day today with gales at times, cold with scattered showers, and a top temperature this afternoon of 7 Celsius, 45 Fahrenheit. Another very windy night to come too, with wintry showers, ice in places, and lows of 3 Celsius, 37 Fahrenheit. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing.
We were listening to you. We were paying attention, but me and Joe, who's producing today, as she normally does for Ian, we've realised we're around the same age, and either we've reached that time of life together, or there's something wrong with the eating in this building.
Shane O'Connor
on BBC WM
95.6.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Oh, we're backing away from it now, are we, Joe? Oh, we are not around the same age at all. We're miles apart. I don't believe it. Shane's sitting in for Ian between now and 12. Thanks for your company. And let me tell you some of the things that we're going to talk about on the show today. We've got some serious stuff. We've got some lighter stuff. On the serious end, you cannot fail to be moved, concerned, worried, frightened, and considering now the events that we've seen coming out of Paris and the events that unfolded yesterday, and I suppose in a way, you know, with all the background noise of what's going on and all the things that are happening, I suppose what we're doing this morning is distilling it down to a simple question, and that is: has it changed the way that you feel about travel? Has it changed the way that you feel about life, the way that you feel about going to see and to do things? There are noises being made now and saying, look, you know, we need to be extra vigilant in the UK as well as we do in France. And in a similar way, and I remember it's a stark contrast, really, because I remember talking to somebody straight after the 9/11 attacks who was supposed to fly to New York 24 hours after those attacks. And obviously they weren't allowed to because of the fact that airspace was closed for a considerable period of time. And I think the flight was rescheduled for like a week or 10 days later, and they said, I'm not going to go because I don't want to do that now. So in a way, it won. You know, the terrorists won in that particular case because somebody decided, I'm going to change the way that I do things now. Are you, because this is now closer to home and because it's on mainland Europe, are you now looking at this and thinking, actually, do you know what? Maybe I'm not completely frightened. Perhaps that's not the right word to use, but I'm now going to be extra cautious and extra vigilant, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not in places. Maybe I was going to go and see some tourist attractions somewhere around Europe or around the world. Maybe I'm going to reconsider my holiday destination. Maybe I'm just going to change the way... Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's what people want you to do who perpetrate these kind of attacks, isn't it? That's what they're driving at. So I wouldn't criticise anybody for feeling that way and for feeling that that's what they wanted to do. But I want to hear your thoughts this morning. What are the emotion when you're looking at this through the newspapers, and you can't fail to escape it on the TV bulletins, on the news bulletins, on the radio, and in the newspapers as well. When you're looking at the pictures and you're hearing, you just heard there Nicole playing some clips of people in France who are saying, it's changed for us now. We feel different. People are frightened. People are very, very cautious. People are worried. So presumably, as a result of that, people will change their habits. Now, like I say, I will be the last person in the world to criticise you for coming on this show this morning and saying, I'm going to change the way that I do things. And to me, maybe there's a line. I'm lucky enough to have been to some amazing places, but amazing places that have suffered tragedy as well. I'm not sure whether I would, and I've been to New York, and I'm never in my mind do I go to New York and think, this is a dangerous place to be in that sense. Although I know people, including my wife, who had been inside the World Trade Center, had been to the top of the world and watched the whole city before you. I never actually did that, so maybe it means something different to me. But I'd love your thoughts on this morning. 03453 009956. What are you feeling now? How is it going to change your life? What are you going to look at differently in the future? Or not? Maybe you are determined that come hell or high water, you won't change what you do or how you do it. 81333 on the text. Start your message WM to join us on the show this morning. So we'll be talking about that. Also on the programme as well, I'd like your views on this one. Do you know we can't get taxi drivers for love nor money? We cannot get taxi drivers, people to drive taxis, people who want to earn a living. We can't get people from inside this country. We now have to go outside of the country to find people to drive our taxis. What on earth? It's not now. I looked at the last unemployment figures, and it didn't suggest to me that everybody was fully employed with work. So what's going on in Wolverhampton? They've been told. I think one of the taxi operators said, "Oh, you've got too many foreign drivers driving our taxis," and they actually said, "Well, do you know what? It's ABC countdown cars say they are struggling to employ British workers, despite Wolverhampton being one of the worst unemployment hotspots in the country." Now, one or two things are happening. Either people think it's beneath them, they don't want to do it, or the other thing, I suppose, is that they think it is a rubbish job. I mean, I don't know. Cabbies out there this morning? Tell me otherwise. 03453 009956 81333 on the text. Start your message to W. I want to hear from you about that one. Why can't we find people from this country to be able to drive our taxis in Wolverhampton? What's going on? Give us your thoughts.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call
03453
009956.
BBC WM
95.6.
Yeah, get in touch with us on the show this morning. Shane O'Connor sitting in for Iain Lee. Love to have your company today on the show. Let us know what you think. There's just two of the things that we're talking about. I also want to know how you stand on men in kilts as well, but more of that a little bit later on. We're talking terror. We're talking about whatever you want to talk about as well. Don't forget we're here for that. 03453 009956. Let's talk to Tony in Stratford, who joins us on the show. Hi, Tony.
Morning.
Hello, mate. What you got for me this morning?
Well, first off, all these terrorist attacks wouldn't bother me going where I want to go, and if I have problems, I'll deal with them then. I won't worry about it beforehand.
Do you know, let me tell you a conversation that actually took place in our household this week. My wife said to me, "I've got some time off coming up in a couple of, I don't know, I was only half listening, I'll be honest with you, but she said she's got some time off coming up soon, right? This is before all this, and she said, "Do you fancy a couple of days in Paris? Because we've never been to Paris in as like a little mini break or anything like that." And I said, "Yeah, I don't really mind." Immediately that this happened, the conversation that we had in the house then was, well, should we revisit our plans now, and do we really want to go? We were talking about March time, Tony. So already you're starting to think, but you're determined that wouldn't happen to you. You wouldn't do that.
No, thinking it. The chances of running into that sort of problem is so minimal.
Yeah.
You just got to ignore it and get on with your life. You can't think in that then run your life. That's for sure.
Go on, and you were going to say something else as well. What was the other one?
My other thing is a little bit controversial, I'm afraid.
Go on.
It's about time all the world governments got off their backsides and dealt with these terrorists en masse. Not little bits here and there. Go in and destroy them. And that's only because you can't convert them. There's no way you can convert them because they got that thing in their mind and they're going to do it. So you've got to go out there and you've got to destroy all of these terrorist cells en masse with every country involved, not just one or two.
Yeah.
The whole world's got to get behind each other and go in and get them out because this world will never ever be stable while that's going on.
How do you identify them? Because this is, I mean, what we learned loud and clear from our troubles in Northern Ireland was that you can't fight a guerrilla force, if you know what I mean when I say that, a force that blends back into the community with a conventional army. It just doesn't work. So in the first place, who are you saying? Because, all right, intelligence might think they know who these people are, but are you willing to, what, you're willing to imprison or kill people based on who you think they might be?
No, I mean, I'm talking about like the ones that are operating now. Really put the fear of their God into them by going out and destroying this IS and the Al-Qaeda, the fighters that are out there. Put them all down, completely wipe them out. And then, as the others pop up, get them and all. None of this court business. Take them out straight away. But make them really fear to do whatever they're going to do.
But don't you sense a mismatch with culture? The one thing that always made me amazed was this idea that we were going to go into Iraq or Afghanistan and we were going to put a democracy in there. And you kind of think, you know, for hundreds of years, these countries have operated and have never adopted a democratic way of living. And we were going to go... I mean, how arrogant, first of all, that we were going to go in and we were going to give them democracy like it was some kind of commodity. But equally, we just don't understand. You're saying about killing these, put the fear of their God into these people. I mean, if you are that fanatical about that religion, you would welcome that. You would welcome death. Do we not have a mismatch of understanding, don't you think?
No, because you still can't deal with them. If you don't deal with them like that, they'll perpetuate and they'll grow. But I mean, I've worked out in the Middle East a lot over the years because as a lorry driver, and I know their mentality reasonably well. Not 100%, but I know reasonably well. And the only thing they understand is the fist. And if you don't use it out there, that's why until like people like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi and all the rest of them were toppled, you didn't have the problems.
Don't you think, though, that the problem is, though, Tony, is that to use your terminology, they understand our mentality. And that's part of the problem, is we understand what we perceive to be their weakness. They understand what we perceive to be our weakness, and we're fighting on those terms, aren't we? That's exactly what we're fighting over.
Trouble is, I don't think the Western world really understands or doesn't want to understand that mindset, because all they want to do is kid gloves. Well, you can't deal with these terrorists with kid gloves, and that's how the powers that be in those countries before we helped topple them kept the countries in line and kept them going and with no trouble, with very little trouble.
Just as a final point, do you think that a lot of people will have your view? You know, this idea that you think, right, there's no way that it's going to influence or impact on how I'm going to live my life. Do you think a lot of people, or do you think there will be people now who will say, actually, I don't want to travel as much as I used to?
Oh, there'll be a lot of people who don't do that, because nowadays the thought of trouble, and a lot of Westerners go into their shell and hide instead of getting out front and fronting it up.
All right.
And until you understand that, no one's going to get anywhere in this world.
Tony, good to talk to you, mate. Have a good day.
Yeah, ta-da. Have a good one.
Take care. Tony in Stratford kicking things off for us this morning. What do you think about what he's saying? And about the question I'm asking you this morning about whether it actually will now inform the way you live your life. 03453 009956, my number. It's 9:15. Let's get the latest travel news this morning. Here's Liz Saul.
Morning, Shane. There's quite a few trees down this morning. The A34 is still blocked both ways in the Huntingdon area around Pottle Pool Road, just north of Cannock. 2 trees down in that area, and the high winds still rather blustery this morning, so you'll probably find quite a bit of branch debris in the carriageways. The one further along the A34 at Cannock Road around Sawpit Lane has been cleared out the way, along with the power cables that also came down. The one at Wedges Mill is cleared, the Wolverhampton Road near to Wood Lane. The A409 one at Middleton is still partially blocked near Bodymore Heath Training Ground at Brickkiln Lane. Again, a tree down there. In Droitwich, Worcester Road remains partially blocked at Lawley Way for the same reason. Box Trees Road in Dorwich is blocked completely at Earlswood Road. And in Corley, we're getting word that Tamworth Road is partially blocked. Tree down there at the junction with Church Lane. Delays of about 30 minutes on train services currently through our region. That's because of overhead line problems in the Lichfield area. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
I was nodding along with you this morning. I was listening to Molly on the way in, and you were saying about trees and tree debris is the thing, because
Yes.
you don't, as you approach it, like if you're on your carriageway, you don't know how bad it's going to be until you're right on top of it, do you?
No, exactly.
So
You have
you-
to be very careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Bang on the button with that, Liz. Thanks for that. And if you, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I don't know whether you're supposed to. Are you supposed to actually report if you see tree debris on the road? I don't know.
On this week's Inside Out, we look at the risks caused by trains depositing toilet wastes on the tracks.
A toilet being flushed at between 40 and 70 mile an hour, you can get sprayed in just about any sort of liquid and solids.
And we hear how an operation performed in Birmingham will be giving a young man hope for the future. That's Inside Out, Monday 7:30 on BBC One.
That's a weird story, isn't it? I mean, because that isn't anything new, is it? Is it what train waste being deposited onto the tracks? I would have thought that they've not just bought a load of new trains and they suddenly do that. We've known about this for years. Why is it a problem? Quite interesting, that one. Shane O'Connor sitting in for Iain Lee between now and 12. Love your thoughts on the show this morning. And initially, one of the things we're kicking off with is the events that have been happening in Paris, of course, all over the front page. I look at the Mail this morning. Thank God our children are safe. Says their front page, the Express bloody end to French sieges. And it's the Express headline, I suppose, that if anything catches my attention more than the others, because they say bloody end to the... Is this the end? Is this the end? Is this merely just another pit stop? I was going to say, is it even the beginning? But it's another pit stop on the ongoing saga, isn't it, really? It's not an end to anything in that sense, other than the immediate fear that gripped France. But as we've been hearing in the news this morning, we've been hearing people from France saying how, and particularly from Paris, saying how frightened they feel now and how people are frightened to go out. We're asking the question this morning, well, one of the questions we're asking this morning is, do you look at that now and think this is going to change the way that I live my life? This is going to change the way that I do things. This is going to change the places that I travel to. I'd love to hear your thoughts if it is, or if you're absolutely defiant, a bit like Tony, that it isn't. You're absolutely determined there is no way that this is going to inform or change the way that you live your life, that you're still booking holidays to places. I know, do you know the one, and it's kind of almost an irrational thing, and people say to me, and I always think it, when people say, they're going on holiday, yeah, where are you going? Egypt. And I always think, are they going to Sharm? Because there were problems there. Would I go there? And all of this runs through your mind at the time. Now, this is just going to get more and more of a critical mass, isn't it? So I love your thoughts on whether it's actually going to change the way that you feel. 03453 009956 about travel. 81333 on the text. Start your message, WM. You can join me on Twitter as well, by the way. Shane on Air. All one word. ShaneOnair. Shane on Air. On Twitter, or shaneonair at bbc.co.uk on the email. Love to know what you think on the show this morning. Let's talk to Professor Scott Lucas, who's an expert in terror at Birmingham University, and joins us on the show. Hi, Scott.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us this morning. I mean, this, like I say, the Express headline, this is a bloody end. It is an end to this particular chapter, but of course the story will go on and go on and go on, won't it?
Well, yes, but that's been true long before this week. I mean, I can remember living in London in the 1980s when there were attacks by the IRA, for example, in Hyde Park. I can remember the days after 9/11 in the United States where my relatives live. The fact is that this is a horrible event. This is tragic. We're not quite sure yet exactly who is behind this, behind the individuals that carried it out. But from my personal perspective, you can either live in fear You can live looking over your shoulder all the time, or you can look forward and say, look, we're going to find a way to try to deal with the causes of this violence through dialogue, through conversation, rather than just being scared of everything that moves around us.
It does make a difference from an anti-terror perspective, I'm guessing as well, Scott, that we need to know where it originates from. There's some suggestions it could be originated from Yemen this morning. There's some suggestion that it could be an ISIS origination, and there's other suggestions saying that it just could be some people who were inspired by one of these organisations. How important is it that we nail that down and we know?
It's always important to try to ascertain what's happened. I mean, both from the standpoint of getting, quote, closure on an event, and also in terms of preparing and being sensible about things like security. But in the meantime, what's really counterproductive is speculation. Because, well, let me give you an example. What we might wind up having is, for example, the head of Britain's intelligence services telling us that there's going to be a wave of Islamic State attacks across this country. Well, with respect to the intelligence services, no, we don't actually have evidence that's going to happen. We don't know if this has come from Al-Qaeda, which is a very different group from the Islamic State. We don't know if it's another group. And as you pointed out, what often happens is that you have certain individuals who don't have links to formal groups, but who basically are angry, are frustrated, who lash out, who wind up carrying out these shootings. It just so happens, this happens in the States all the time. You get all the time. People have shot up schools, they've shot up post offices, they've killed dozens of people. The difference is we usually don't link those events to some type of bogeyman like the Islamic State, whereas here the natural reaction is to try to find an explanation, say, based in the Middle East.
The interesting parallel that you draw there with shootings in school, because I'm very fond of America, and I think it's a great country to visit, and I think it's a fascinating country to visit, but I never get a sense of frustration that you have those kind of, those lone wolf kind of attacks without any kind of understanding. And part of the human psyche, surely, Scott, is that you even when it is completely nonsensical, you want to try and make some sense of what you're seeing, don't you?
Well, you get a different type of explanation in the States, and that is perhaps, for example, when two kids shot up Columbine in Colorado over a decade ago, maybe it was, the music they listened to or video games, or maybe they just were mentally unbalanced. And I'm going to be honest why that happens. That's because those kids were white. They had no named connection to Islam. Therefore, we don't, that's the natural connection that people tend to make. Now, when you have shooters who are not white, who you think might be inspired by some type of foreign Islamic group, race is important here, and also just the question of culture, and that is that the United States will never do anything about mass killings like Columbine because it doesn't want gun control.
When you talk about culture as well, I was just talking to Tony just before you came on, and he was saying about, he'd worked in the Middle East and he understands the social, cultural psyche of the people that live in that area. And I was saying to him, but surely the problem is that they understand the cultural, social psyche of the people who live in the West, and that's what they're using against us in a way. And it all does, forget the religion and all the rest of it, it does seem to come down to a cultural, psychological imbalance, doesn't it?
What it comes down to, at least for me, is fear and suspicion of the other. So this isn't a one-way thing.
On both sides, I was going to say,
This is not a one-way thing. So I'm looking at reactions this morning coming out of Iran, which are just asinine, which are saying that the attacks in France this week was because the West supported the opposition against Syria's President Assad. And it's like politics basically creates these conspiracies and explanations. Let me just say this to you. I've been fortunate to go to Islamic shrines in Mecca, in Lebanon, and I've been there when people have been there peacefully. No hint of violence, no hint of suspicion, even though my father's a Christian preacher. In other words, we can choose fear, we can choose suspicion, or we can choose to reach out for some kind of understanding, and I know which one I prefer.
What do we do now? Do we continue? I suppose in a way, do we just reach a state of acceptance that this is part of our everyday life? There'll be people listening to this show, Scott, who are old enough to remember the first ever airliner hijacking and the novelty that was, and the horror that people looked on. And now, thankfully, systems are in place where it is more rare than not now. But do you see what I mean? It's it's become part of the 21st century culture. Is that what we do? We just say, this is something we now need to deal with?
Well, you take sensible steps. I mean, airport security could be an inconvenience at times, especially when you're running late for a flight. But we do that to reduce the chances that someone is going to carry out an attack. If you go to certain countries where there's been instability, you take sense when you're sensible when you walk the streets. But at the same time, I wake up, I hug my kids each morning, I hug my wife, give her a kiss, go off to work happy that I've got a great job, and don't basically say this is going to be a horrible day where we could be dying at any minute. I'm not going to go into a shell because of what's happened, just as you saw basically that Charlie Hebdo, the magazine where several people were killed this week, lost 6 of its best cartoonists, will publish this week. They'll publish with a statement that life and work and enjoyment go on.
And with regards to the core of what we're talking about this morning and people changing their habits, changing their lifestyle, changing their travel arrangements, just being more aware, is that being, as you say, being careful, being cautious, or is that giving in to terrorism? Where's that line?
I don't see it as giving in to terrorism as much as, look, if you're going to travel somewhere, learn about that country, learn about the people, learn about the good things about that country as well as the problems that it might have had in the past.
But what if you're one of these people who surely will be out there this morning who will say, and I'll be honest with you, we've had this conversation, because prior to this attack we were talking about going to Paris, we've had this conversation in our house, do we really want to go now, although it's going to be sort of, March or April time, is it something that we'd like to do? Does that, because you weigh up the options, don't you? But it is, so where's the line between saying if we don't go, we've given into terrorism, or we're just being cautious?
Well, let me bring it back to brass tacks, and that is that chances are there will not be an attack in Paris today or tomorrow or the day after. Yeah. This was horrible what happened in the past week, but chances are is a spike in violence. I'll go back to the fact that we had such spikes in violence in London for different reasons back in the 1980s when I was a university student. I didn't immediately pack up and go to the United States and say, I can't live in London. In part, it's not giving in to terrorism, but in other parts it is, look, bad things happen in life. Bad people are out there who do bad things. And frankly, I'm not going to give in to that. I think there's too many good things to be enjoyed. So, folks, go enjoy Paris.
Are we cautious enough? And you started, but I was mindful. I thought, well, I'll save this towards the end as a question. But you said the worst thing we can do is speculate. So, Scott, here I go. I'm going to speculate. I was reading this morning. They were saying there's just a line that said that neighbours, because the criticism, I suppose, of the security forces is not that these guys did what they did, but they were allowed to maybe amass the weapons that they had and be as organised as they were. And there was one line that came out of a news bulletin somewhere, I forget where it was, that said something along the lines of neighbours understood that they had got these firearms and were aware of that. And you kind of think, on what planet do you become aware that somebody has these kind of semi-automatic weapons and don't think to pick up the phone and call somebody? And I just wonder, is there a disconnection between the security forces and the everyday streets of cities like Paris, London, Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow?
It's not a disconnect as much as the fact that it's a huge task. I mean, you've got millions of people in Paris. You've got millions of possible incidents that happen each day. Same thing in London, same thing in Birmingham, for example. I think what's important is that the security services find a way where people feel like they can go to security services and in a sense that they can trust them. Because we're always, let's be honest here, we always sometimes worry about surveillance. We worry sometimes that there might be raids. This happened very close to where I live in Birmingham a few years ago. And the more that security services can explain what they're doing and why they're doing it as part of the sensible security, rather than, and this is my fear from what happened this week, stoking up a bit of fear and suspicion by basically saying, oh, they could attack at any time. That's counterproductive. Dialogue is what's needed here. And that means that, sure, you be vigilant, you be secure, but you basically don't overreact to what's happening.
One final question then, while I've got you here, because I appreciate your expertise. Sure. I wonder now, that it's been described, somebody was describing it, and I think one of the cartoonists actually drew two pencils with a plane flying towards them, alluding to the fact that this has become France's 9/11. Somebody's actually said the words now and said this feels like our 9/11 now. After 9/11, Scott, many people said everything has changed, the world will never be the same again. What do you think will be the changes as a result of these attacks in Paris?
I think we're going to go through a phase over the next few weeks of increased tension. I think we're going to go through uncertainty. I'm actually not sure we're going to get final answers on why exactly these attackers did what they did this week. After those few weeks, we're going to go back to a world which is quite often messy, quite often unstable. Usually that's quite far away from us, thousands of miles away. But for most of us, like I said, life will go on. You got bills to pay. You got to have a roof over your head. You got kids to love. And for me, that's going to be the main thing, despite the fact that, like I said, there are bad things out there. Understand them and try to realize why they happen.
Scott, always a pleasure, you know that. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Professor Scott Lucas, expert in terror at Birmingham University, joining us on the show this morning. What do you think about what Scott's saying? What are your thoughts about how you are going to live your life following these attacks? Are you going to change the way that you do things, the way that you travel, the way that you think about countries, rightly or wrongly? I'm not here to judge whether it's right or wrong, but just to talk about the whys and the wherefores of whether you will be doing that, and if so, if you want to break out of not doing that, how would you do that? Let's talk to Beryl, who's in Hodge Hill. Morning, Beryl.
Morning, Shane.
Thanks for being with us. What do you think?
Well, briefly, I am a world traveller, and I've picked out a place where I'd like to go back to America, because I've done all the canyons down the Mississippi,
nice.
Graceland, New Orleans.
Do you know, I was just talking about Graceland the other day.
Yes.
Was that as good as they say?
Oh, it is good, yes.
Okay.
Because I go on guided tours.
Right.
And there's a one there now up into Texas and into the Blue Mountains and things like that.
Beautiful.
Which is Dolly Parton's country.
Yeah.
And I'd love to do that. And it's a beautiful trip. It's 15 days.
What's that all around Virginia, is it, I suppose?
Yes,
is it that
yes,
kind?
but
Yeah.
we fly.
Oh, wow.
I can fly from Birmingham to Washington.
Right.
Now, that, to me, is alarming, because I'm frightened of people blowing the aircraft up.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have this fear before until this ISA come in.
When you say you're frightened of it now, because I'll be honest with you, what worries me, because I must admit we love to travel as well whenever we can.
Yeah.
And what worries me more is when I see not terrorist attacks on aeroplanes, but just when planes go wrong and it doesn't work. Like the terrible events that we saw in Southeast Asia recently.
But you see, at the moment, whilst we're in Paris now, they're entering buildings. What's to stop them entering in airports and doing the same thing there before you've even got onto the aircraft?
Although the reality is, Beryl, if you wanted to find an armed police officer around the world, you've got a better chance of finding one at an airport than you have anywhere else.
You have.
So in a way, are you more at risk? I hear what you're saying, I'm not, but are you more at risk or are you safer? Is the thing I always think. I don't know.
I try to think that way, but when they said this Islamic State or this sort of thing, I mean, this has cropped up so seriously now in the last 12 months. Very, very prominent it is now. And with the way that they've got their people armed in the way they've gotten what they are, it's a professional army of people that's out to kill anybody that isn't a Christian or whatever. And because they're increasing and they're so fully armed and so prepared, I think they could be anywhere, and we really don't know.
I'm assuming you were in Birmingham in the 70s,
I am,
the 60s and 70s, where you were around there as well. Were you as frightened by the IRA threat?
Yes, we were, to a point, yes. I was here, of course, when they had the bombing in New Street and that, Yeah. And I was completely shocked. But then, of course, we didn't have that all the time like we get in this Islamic State. This is on the news every day of the week now.
Now, is that because it's happening more, or because the news is more available? Because I mean, if you think back to what a news bulletin was like in the 1970s, when they were sat there behind the desk in their wood-panelled studio, and you probably get one at one bulletin at tea time and one at 10 o'clock at night, if you were lucky, weren't you? And you wouldn't get that on both sides. So now we've got 24-hour rolling news, Beryl.
Yeah.
We've got people telling you what, and you pick up. I mean, I pick up the papers. I've got 5 pages before I even get another story in all the papers. And I just wondered, you're right, because you do feel bombarded as a result, don't you?
We are bombarded, but the thing is, I think it's got a lot worse in the last 30 years than it ever was before.
Right.
It's increased with this idealism that everybody should be like them, and if you're not like them, then they're out to shoot you and kill you.
How often do you think you think about this now? Is it just when
It's a daily thing, isn't it?
Right.
It's a daily thing.
Right.
It is a daily thing.
But it's heightened when you come to think about travelling, or you come to book a holiday. You think,
yeah, it didn't bother me before, but it does now. It does now. I mean, I've travelled Africa, India, you name it, all over Europe, the Mediterranean, everywhere like that. And it's come into my place now. Last year or the year before, didn't bother me so much at all.
Yeah.
But it does now.
And when you go to America, do you have the similar fear that just a lone gunman could come through the mall that I'm in, or so it's not just Islamic terrorism, if you like.
No.
It's terrorism, or it's just dangerous people. Full stop.
Yeah, because you're in crowds of people. I mean, it wasn't long ago when one big supermarket there, they had a bit of a spate up there. And I went in that supermarket a few years ago, and I remember it. As soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
Because people are armed there. You don't know whether they've got a gun on themselves.
Isn't Scott right, though? Professor Scott Lucas just saying, look, at the end of the day, you've got kids to love, you've got bills to pay, you've got a life to... You've got to just go and live your life, haven't you, don't you think? Can I just give you one piece of advice before we leave each other?
Go on.
If you've never been to Washington...
Well, if I go on this trip, I shall be flying to Washington.
Do me one favour. Will you do me one favour? If you fly to Washington, get off the plane and go and have a look.
Well, we will be. We're flying to Washington.
Oh, we've recently done it, and it was amazing.
I would. My wish there would to be bump into Obama.
Well, I did.
I'd love to see him.
I did actually. We went to. We were walking up to the White House, and all of a sudden, the police closed down all the roads. And I thought, oh, what's happening here? This is nice. And I said to them, "We hang on, we'll just have a look and see what it was." And we went, okay. Yeah. And we waited. I've never waited this long for anything. About 25 minutes, half an hour, and eventually he came in, wound the window down, waved at everybody, and carried on into the White House. I thought,
that's lovely.
I've had my money's worth now, Beryl.
Oh, you have, yeah.
Seriously, honestly, really great to talk to you.
And another thing I like over there as well is the trading posts.
Yeah.
Oh, I could spend hours in there.
My advice, don't change a thing, Beryl. It sounds like you've got it bang on the button. Thanks for joining us, Beryl in Hodge Hill. She really does think seriously about travel and about where she goes and about how she travels. But I suppose, in a way, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that what you should be doing? I always think if you think, oh, I'm just going to wander around the streets and I'm going to flash my money about and show everybody my valuables or you know what I mean? You kind of think, well, you wouldn't do that at home, so shouldn't you? You're going on a serious journey. Shouldn't you be giving it some consideration? Shouldn't you be worried? Shouldn't you be cautious? Shouldn't you be looking at what security arrangements are? 03453 009956. What a great call. 81333 on the text. Start your message, WM. Let's talk to James. He's a very patient man waiting in Neutral. Sorry to keep you hanging about, James. Morning. Thanks for being with us. What you got?
Yeah, I was listening. I am more cautious, to be honest with you. I'm even more cautious of, I know some people ain't going to agree with what I say, but like Muslims, because to me, I mean, what's been happening in Australia, England, France, and all over the place. 1 minute they're like, could be saying hello to you as a neighbour. Next minute, they could be planting bombs and killing people. I am quite.
Isn't that the same for everybody? Isn't that the same for everybody? I mean, I'm not. I'm not trying to be politically correct. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But if I'll be honest with you. I watch a lot of programmes about murder. People worry about me, but these documentaries about murderers and serial killers and all that sort of stuff, and I'm always flabbergasted at how flaming normal these people look. Isn't that the same about everybody? But you now think, are they Muslim? And therefore, if they are they a risk? You're putting it in your own mind in a way, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be totally honest. I'm not going to, dress it up. I've always got along with people, no matter what they are. But now I am much more cautious of them, you know, and what's been happening, you know, I'm just hearing like these people lived in normal neighbourhoods and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, what that guy was saying, what you were saying about the neighbours knew that they had guns.
I've not got that confirmed. I mean, that was a line that came out of a bulletin somewhere, and I'm not even sure that that's true, but there is a suggestion, but yeah.
Yeah, but the bit about the travel, I mean, I love Egypt, you know, I really do love Egypt. It's a nice place, but I've been to Tunisia and a few other Muslim countries, but I wouldn't go back to them now, not with what's going on, because, to be honest with you, I'm a bit fearful of being a Westerner and going to these countries. I don't know how I'm going to be perceived out there now, and if I'd be at risk, to be honest with you. And I know it's a horrible thing to have to, you know, to think about, but I won't go back to them in this climate. No, I won't. Although I do love Egypt; it's a lovely place.
Really, and that's really sad, isn't it? Because obviously the people who are trying to make a living in those countries are suffering as well.
Yeah. I mean, they are suffering. The ones who aren't involved in it. But my own view is I just wouldn't take the risk to go to any of those countries: Egypt, Tunisia, Turkey. I just would not go to any Muslim country at the moment, or even the ones in Africa. No, I would not go to them.
So even because some of those are not predominantly Muslim that you mentioned, I just want to even countries that have a Muslim presence you wouldn't go to, and yet you live in such a country.
The ones with the Muslim presence, I'd probably still go to those because it's not like a Muslim country. But the ones where it is like a Muslim country, I wouldn't go to.
Can I ask you, Iain, let me ask you a question as well, and be as honest as you can, but seriously, is this a problem of religion? And let me quantify that, because I'm from an Irish background, obviously, with a name like Shane O'Connor, you would probably expect that. And from an Irish Catholic background, and I remember growing up in the 70s in Birmingham, and talking to and asking my dad about why the IRA were doing what they're doing, and how that worked, because I was learning at school about Christianity and about, loving your neighbour and about thou shalt not kill. And I'm saying, Dad, and poor old Dad's like trying to think, well, I've got to answer all these questions. But do you understand what I'm saying? Is that I'm saying that I'm asking about this religion. As a kid, I'm learning about this religion, and then on the other hand, I'm switching on the news or picking up a newspaper and finding people killing people in the name of that religion. That doesn't work for me. So in the same way, I really understand when Muslims say, read our holy book and look at what we say about what you should do with your neighbour and whether you should kill or not. This isn't religion. And don't you think that, in a sense, this isn't about religion? This is people hijacking a religion to say this is what they believe should happen, and therefore they're no different from anyone else who's a mass murderer or a serial killer for whatever other reason.
I mean, I think, like we said there about the interpretation of the Quran, there is a lot of factions in the Muslims who believe certain things and believe, interpret it different ways.
Or even just make things up as well, don't they? A lot of them, they'll just go, it says that, when it quite clearly doesn't.
When it doesn't, yeah. I mean, there is that aspect of it, but my worry is that there does seem to be, well, to me anyway, a large number who are unfortunately going the other way, and seem to have a hatred of the West. I mean, I remember once I was just walking along the street, and there was this young lad with his phone. He was no more than 20. And I heard him on the phone, and this was after the 9/11, and it was basically talking to somebody and kind of gloating, about what had been done. And I thought, how can you be gloating about something like that where, innocent people have died, and you're living here and, you're just gloating. I mean, to me, no, I would. I mean, getting back to holidays, I'm very, very cautious.
And what would it take to get you back there, James? What would it be? A period of time where there were no incidents, or what would it take? If I said to you, right, James, you let me know, I've got a pair of tickets, Egypt, what would it take to get you back there?
When I've heard a lot of confirmations that it's actually, it's all calmed down and they're welcoming people back in, they're not like, Westerners are safe there, basically. Yeah. I'd go back to any Muslim country then if I felt that Westerners would be safe there.
James,
it's not hatred of people or anything like that. It's just a case of, being cautious and trying to protect yourself.
No, good to talk to you, mate. Thanks for that. James in Neatles, fascinating insight into how he feels. I don't suppose there's any Egyptians listening to the show this morning who maybe their family works in tourism, have got anything to say about what it's doing to you, or any other countries, of course, who have seen a downturn in tourism. And I'm sure there must be. 03453 009956 is our number. WM to start your text and send it to 81333. Dave in Atherstone, not forgotten you. We'll catch up with you in a second. Right after we caught up with Liz Saul, who's got all the travel for us.
Hello, Shane. There's a lot of fallen trees around this morning, although the better news is that the A34 around Pottle Pool Road has reopened. The 2 trees that came down there have been cleared off the carriageway. You'll still find there's a tree down in Middleton, the A4091 at Brickkiln Lane, Droitwich, Worcester Road, still partially blocked because of that tree down there, although it looks like they're hoping to clear that out of the way at Lawley Way. Around Corley, Tamworth Road remains partially blocked as you head around Church Lane, and in Dorwich, Box Trees Road is completely blocked because of the tree which has come down by Earlswood Road. Otherwise, you'll find there's quite a bit of congestion around through Edgbaston on the A38 as you head around the roadworks by the Priory Road junction. Lane closures as you head out of the city, so that's causing a bit of congestion. The A449 is partially blocked and a little bit busy. Apparently, there's a tree down there in the Claines area, so you head around Ombersley. Pershall Road in Birmingham is busy towards the Belgrave Interchange. Approaching Bordsley Circus is also rather congested. If you can update us, 08453 002288.
Danny Kelly.
I'll let you know why David Cameron personally threatened to have me bumped off. Listen to this.
I told you I'd probably have to kill you, so I can't tell you that.
Now, if you can fill in the bleeps.
Well, if I told you our strategy, I'd have to have you killed.
Oh, our strategy?
I think you're asking him where he's going on holiday now.
I love it. If I told you I was going to Lanzarote.
I told you I'd probably have to kill you, so I can't tell you that.
Danny Kelly.
Well, now we can reveal it. You'll hear the answer. Where do you run? Do you have a treadmill at number 10 or something?
I have got a treadmill, but if I told you where I went for a run, I'd probably have to kill you, so I can't tell you that.
Weekdays from 9.
BBC WM
95.6.
No, I guess I love you. If I told you I love you, I probably have to kill you. 13 minutes to 10, it's Shane O'Connor sitting in for Iain Lee between now and midday. Thanks for your company. Thanks for your calls as well. Keep them coming, 03453 009956. One of the things we're kicking around on the show right now is whether you've actually changed your travel habits, whether it will actually inform the decisions that you make when it comes to travel, the things that you're seeing in Paris, in France in the last few days. Have you decided now that maybe it would have been a destination for you that it isn't going to be now? Do let us know on that one. Also, coming up a bit later on as well, and I'd like your thoughts in advance of this one as well. This is talking off the back of Danny, actually, who was talking about this earlier on in the week, saying that taxi drivers, there was a complaint taxi drivers couldn't speak English, and the bosses at Wolverhampton, the licensing bosses, have dismissed claims that there are too many foreign taxi drivers in the city. In fact, one of the companies there, ABC Countdown Cars, says they're struggling to employ British workers to drive taxis. Can anybody tell me why? I have got no idea why that should be.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM
95.6.
What does that say about the state of employment in the West Midlands? 12 minutes to 10. Let's talk to Dave in Atherstone. Morning, Dave.
Morning, Shane.
Talking about travel, terror, and whether the two are connected in people's minds now. We've heard a lot of people saying this morning that it is uppermost in their minds. Is it the same for you, Dave, as well?
Yeah, it's a lucky bag. It's just a case of, you might be lucky enough to be in a place where something kicks off and nobody knows when and where, so it's just chance, isn't it,
Would it stop you travelling? If you'd got, say you got a couple of tickets to go on the train or something, the Eurostar down to Paris for this weekend, would you still go?
Well, obviously I'd try and think realistically about what the possibilities were, and I'd react in, whatever way I thought, with the possibilities, the realistic possibilities.
Do you know what surprised me this morning is how, because for a living I have to look through the newspapers, and I'm not sure I would if I didn't, or certainly not to the extent that I do. I get to see most of them and the way that they write stuff. What surprises me though is how many people this morning have said that they have a personal connection with what they're seeing on the news, what they're reading in the newspapers, and what they're hearing on the radio as well. Is that do you feel the same for you, that you are you are part of the story, as it were, that it directly affects you, that this is very real and very much on your doorstep.
Well, of course, I mean, you see what it is. They're invisible enemies, or if I can use that word, enemies, because I don't like the word enemy, but they're invisible. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they're coming from. You don't know when they're going to be there, and you see, the first caller you had this morning, Shane, I must admit he annoyed me, because it's all right him coming on a telephone and spouting off about do this and do that and da-da-da-da-da. And all the while he was rabbiting on, I was thinking, yeah, but if they do what you're suggesting, what's going to happen to millions and millions of innocent people again? It's all right him sitting in an armchair on the telephone saying, oh, they've got to do this and they've got to do this and take them out and do it. And I'm thinking, well, what about the innocent people who are going to get wrapped up in it all?
Well, not least the fact as well is that, if we've learned nothing from 2 major world wars and all the other conflicts that we've had around the world, is that this idea that you just keep killing people until there are no more people to kill, and that killing people doesn't convert people who are left, because how would you feel if somebody came and killed your father and brother? Wouldn't you want to avenge those deaths? It doesn't work, does it, really?
No.
I mean, so it's empty rhetoric, isn't it, really, at the end of the day?
Well, yeah, but you see, it's, with all due respect, I mean, I don't wish to be rude to anybody.
No.
But it's mouths like your first caller that annoys me. You see, because what I would suggest to him, if he feels as strongly as he does, the way he does, why didn't he go and join up? Why didn't he go and join up and actually be on the front line and do what he wants others to do and see how he feels about it?
Isn't what he's saying, though, and you're right. I mean, I'm not being disrespectful to, I think it was Tony, wasn't it, who joined us first off, and he has the right to have his opinion. But what I hear from Tony, though, is just another way of expressing fear and frustration and anger and hurt and pain, but in a way that says, I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. Do you know what I mean? It's the language of frustration, that is, isn't it? Surely.
Well, yeah, but the fact is, though, Shane, I mean, we don't know who he is and what he is, but presumably he hasn't suffered, the ills of what's gone on when places have been blown up. But you see, there are millions of people who are no longer with us, and they've done nothing wrong. They're not a part of anything. They're not a part of any groups. They're just people, trying to live a life. And with no justification, a bomb comes and bang, and they're all gone.
And you see, I mean, to me, the whole thing is, Dave, that people, the human condition is that if there is no sense to what you're talking about, you, as a human being, you want to make sense of it. You want to understand. You want to give some rhyme or some reason to it. And that's where the religious, and it doesn't whatever religion it is, it doesn't make any difference what it is. But when somebody says, I do this in the name of religion, we almost want to believe that, because that will give us some kind of logic. Yeah, it doesn't seem so. Oh, well, they did it. Why did... Do you know, it's that thing, it's the Boomtown Rat song, isn't it? And the girl in the school who went and shot up the school, one of those first kind of shootings, and they asked her why she did it. She went, I don't know, I don't like Mondays.
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense.
You see, talking about religion, Shane, and this is another thing that saddens me, there are so many people who use the word religion to justify what they're doing, and as a Christian country, and I mean this is what I believe, as a Christian country, Christianity is getting less and less. That's why you've got a divided... Well, one of the reasons why you've got a divided society. There's little to no compassion between people anymore. Anything happens and too many people are all too keen to walk on the other side of the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it all has a bad effect on society.
Listen,
know what I mean?
I do. Dave, great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Shane,
Yes,
how's your family, matey?
They're all right, yeah, they're all right. They're okay. The cat's been a bit under the weather this week, but I think he's out the worst of it now. But
how many children you got?
Got none. No.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, I'm sorry,
No.
mate. I'm sorry.
No, it's
So
all right,
his
no.
wife okay?
Don't apologise. It's a lovely, peaceful, quiet house, mate, I tell you. Yeah, the missus is great. Thank you ever so much.
All right.
Listen, good to talk to you, mate.
You take care.
And thanks for joining us. That's Dave in Atherstone this morning.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM
95.6.
Yeah, don't apologise. I don't want kids. Please, honestly, I'm happy as I am. 5 to 10. Morton Storm is a Danish convert to radical Islam turned double agent for the Western Intelligence Service. He spent a lot of time in the Yemen, where Anwar al-Awlaki was his mentor before collating information that would lead to his death at the hands of a drone strike. He's written a book called Agent Storm about his experiences, and I'm delighted to say he joins us on the show this morning. Morton, thanks for being with us. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
There's some suggestion that this attack in Paris is coming from exactly where you were, from the Yemen. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not surprised, and we know that Al-Qaeda in Yemen have tried for many years to strike the West. Unfortunately, they succeeded this time.
And in terms of the amount of equipment that they had and their training, and I know it's a while since you've been there, but Al-Qaeda in Yemen, is it a sophisticated operation?
Yes, it is very sophisticated because the problem is, well, the organization are very sophisticated. They're very organized. But what we're seeing today is, or the last few days, it's an organizations within Europe who a sleeping cell who managed to gain the weapons from Europe within the borders, and this is what is the scary part, because it means that there are quite a lot of weapons and even quite heavy, like RPGs, floating in the market in Europe, and if they get in the wrong hands, as we have seen, they will kill people, innocent civilians. So. So yes, it is a very sophisticated, it's very, very clever terrorist attack. They have managed to trick the French authorities to think that they were now passive. But it's a sleeping cell that actually woke up, and once the preparation was made, they woke up and they struck the heart of Europe in Paris.
I mean, presumably, because you worked on both sides of that line. I mean, presumably, the intelligence services now will view this, I'm guessing, Morton, as an oversight, a mistake, something that they need to change, and they will come down harder on people that they have under surveillance, won't they?
Yes, I hope so. I have warned, even from last year, and I keep on warning the government, please do not allow fighters to come back to our countries, because they have chosen to leave, everything behind them, and then to go and join the ranks of these people over there. But the problem is now, once they've been sent back to us, like sleeping cells, like we have seen the last few days, it's very, very difficult to infiltrate them or maybe stop them. I mean, we need to prevent them coming back to Europe. So once they have gone, and I'll keep on saying that, I cannot stress that out more important. They must not be allowed to return back to our countries. Once they're gone, it's a one-way ticket.
Listen, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. Morton Storm there, who's written a book called Agent Storm about his experiences as a double agent, a Danish convert to radical Islam turned double agent for Western Intelligence Services. The one that really stuck in my mind and all of the things that he'd said in the notes not on air, but he was saying about, if this is an Al-Qaeda attack, then IS will want to sort of view it in a competitive way and try to do something worse, which is almost horrific and doesn't bear thinking about. It's Shane O'Connor sitting in for Iain Lee between now and midday. We'll take more of your calls on whether this is changing the way you look at travel, changing the way that you look at life, whatever you want to have a say on this morning. 03453 009956 81333 on the text, start your message WM. Also, still to come, we're going to be finding out about why we can't get any taxi drivers who are born in this country to work in Wolverhampton. We have to go elsewhere. Which doesn't seem to make sense. Why would that be? Any cabbies out there driving around this morning? 03453 009956. If you get a second, give me a shout.
It goes onside here and clear of the defender and through on the goal. It's in. Blackburn versus Wolverhampton Wanderers live FM commentary this Sunday from 1.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Right now, 10 o'clock, it's BBC WM 95.6. Time to get the latest news. Here's Nicole Pullman.
5 people are in custody today in France following the ending of the 2 separate sieges yesterday. The 2 brothers who carried out the attack on the Charlie Hebdo magazine were killed as they attacked police in a town northeast of Paris. Another gunman who'd been holding people at a Jewish supermarket in the capital also died after killing 4 of his hostages. These Parisians said the atmosphere in the city had changed.
I think people are really feeling nervous and a little bit scared. You know, you can see cops almost everywhere, almost every station.
I feel the pressure and I can hear people speaking around like they are a little bit scared.
I think this is our September 11th in Paris. We don't know what's next. It's kind of scary, but we have to just live the life.
A woman has died in a house fire in Birmingham. It happened in Churchill Road in Handsworth yesterday evening. West Midlands Ambulance Service say nothing could be done to save her and she died at the scene. 52 supporters of the English Defence League have been given jail sentences totalling more than 75 years after violence at a protest in Birmingham. Police officers were attacked during the demonstration in the city centre 18 months ago. The sentences range from community orders to more than 3 years in jail. Detective Chief Inspector Simon Wallace spoke to BBC WM.
They engaged in wanton violence, throwing bricks, hurling anything they could find at the police, at members of the public, causing damage, and certainly this is the culmination of a lot of them getting their comeuppance.
High winds reaching gale force are battering the West Midlands, bringing down trees onto roads in more rural areas. Elsewhere in the country, in Brighton, 2 men are missing after apparently going swimming in the sea during gale force winds and high waves. And in Scotland, 28,000 homes have now been without electricity for 2 days after gales brought down power lines. Aston Villa will be seeking to record a league double over Leicester City when they visit the King Power Stadium this afternoon for our commentary game on BBC WM 95.6. Paul Lambert's side were 2-1 victors when the 2 teams met at Villa Park in early December. The Villa boss is full of admiration for the job being done by his opposite number, Nigel Pearson. And although Leicester are bottom of the table, Lambert isn't expecting an easy ride.
Tough game. We had a good game here a month or so ago, and Nigel's come through a hard time, and but done great with Leicester last year as well and get them up into the league. So that'll be a tough game. We're playing well at the minute. We just need to finish 8 chances and to open teams up.
The weather, very windy all day with gales at times, cold with scattered showers and a top temperature of 7 Celsius, 45 Fahrenheit. Another very windy night too with wintry showers and ice in places and lows of 3 Celsius, 37 Fahrenheit. Tomorrow staying windy but milder with some light rain and a top temperature of 8 Celsius, 46 Fahrenheit.
Sorry, that's as fast as I can run these days. You know, when you get to my age, that's running for me. That was, did you?
We almost had the outlook then.
I run like my mum used to. You know, funny enough, I don't know why that is with hereditary. Can I tell my dad's joke? Whenever it's windy, I always tell my dad's joke, and the people have heard it so many times before. But it's just such a cracker, which is it's so windy out there. I've just seen a chicken lay the same egg 4 times.
Shane O'Connor
on BBC WM
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
He always does it. I love it. It's just, Dad, if you're listening, that one's for you. Have that on me. Although he can't tell it in so many places now because so many other people have heard it. It's Shane O'Connor sitting in for Iain Lee for the next couple of hours. I'm with you through until midday as normal. And we want your thoughts. We've got lots of stuff to kick around this morning, including why is it so difficult to find taxi drivers who are from the UK to work in Wolverhampton? What's going on there? It's not. In fact, it's the opposite, isn't it? I was going to say it's not as if there aren't any unemployed people out there, but unemployment. It's a hot spot. It's one of the worst unemployment hotspots in the country in Wolverhampton, and yet people don't want to drive it. Is it that bad, cabbies? Let me know this morning. What's your working week like? Is it that bad that people think that is do you know, talking about bad jobs, I've talked to people this week. We didn't get to talk to them, but they were advertising for the job of being a paintball target, and they had about 400 applications for that. So basically, you stand there and they fire paintball guns at you. 400 or 500 applications for that. Can't get one for a taxi driver in Wolverhampton. What is going on? What is the problem? Is it perceived now as just a way of making a living by taking drunk people around the countryside at night. Maybe it's people being in taxis and thinking, wouldn't do that for all the tea in China. We're going to find out more. I'd love to know your thoughts, though. If you're a cabbie, if you've got somebody in the family who's a cabbie, 03453 009956. What's the problem? Is it Wolverhampton that's the problem? I don't know. 81333 on the text. Start your message, WM. And we're also asking you still as well this morning about whether you fear travel now. Maybe you look differently at travel off the back of events that we're seeing in Paris over the last few days. What are your thoughts on that? Give us a shout on the programme as well on that one.
Shane O'Connor
on BBC WM
95.6.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Let's stay on that theme then, because I've been keeping Andy in Halzo in waiting. Hi, Andy.
Good morning, Shane.
Talking about travel and about the way that you feel about travel in the light of the latest horrific terrorist attack. What are your thoughts on that?
Right, well, I'm a little bit disappointed in one of your callers.
Go on.
Dave, I think his name was.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around what he was trying to say regarding criticising your first caller.
Oh, Tony, yeah.
Getting together.
Yeah.
I was wondering, could you explain it? Because
I'm
just flabbergasted by the man having to turn around and say to him for him to join up. I suppose a man would join up if he could, like I would. I'd join up if I could. I mean, what a ridiculous statement to make.
I think what he was saying was that he was questioning and I know why Tony said it. Tony was the first caller, and Tony said something along the lines of, he said,
hit it right on the head.
I don't get why we don't come down harder on this, and it's the iron fist, and let's get in there and let's just, kill people, don't bother with courts and all the rest of it, and let's do that. And Dave was saying, I don't get the logic of that at all, and I understand why Tony said it, and that's why I wanted him to say it. I wanted to have him say this morning. I got to admit, though, I agree with Dave, because I don't think that isn't a thing that would work, Andy. I really don't think it would.
You agree with Dave?
In which bit?
Well, do you agree with him what he said about all the countries getting together? And if the man feels that strongly, he should join.
No, I mean I don't agree with that. I mean I don't think if it,
I've never heard such tripe in all my life. I really am.
Well, I know what you mean. I mean it's just but again, people say things. To me, Tony was saying what he was saying because
right. He's the only caller. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Shane.
Go on.
I'm a little bit aerated. The first time I've spoken to you as well, by the way. You're a lovely broadcaster.
Thanks, mate.
I think the man made complete sense.
Yeah.
I mean, what did he say? What was wrong? And what did he say to be warranted for him to join up? What a ridiculous statement.
Well, the
it's
logic...
always America, it's always us, and France what go first.
Yeah.
And that man was dead right what he said earlier on. Let's get the shirkers in as well. The only trouble is, I suppose I do agree with Dave regarding all the innocent people, the kiddies and that, and that's how I look at it.
But all right, let's
know
look
how they could do it by getting all the world forces together.
Let's talk about the logic though of what you would do. All right, so you get the world forces together, Andy. Okay, and where do you go?
Well, just the same as what we're doing. Britain, America, and France, Belgium, Holland. All the ones when I'm always at the front.
Where's the front? Where is the front? Where's the front? Tell me where you go. Where do you go?
Well,
that's the problem. We're all sat there in a truck with all our battle fatigues on and all the weapons, and we're all sat there and we go, right, okay, hit it. Where do we go? Where do you go? Where do you start? Do you go to the Yemen? Do you invade another country? And you look what happened in Iraq. Look what's happened in Afghanistan. When we decide to go and sit in somebody else's country, causes you more problems than it solves. Where do you go, Andy? Where do you head to?
We're not world leaders. We ain't prime ministers, am we? I mean, I was just an ordinary professional HGV driver.
Nothing wrong with that.
Sorry?
Nothing wrong with that. That's you can just because you're not running a country doesn't mean to say you can't have a view, does it?
Well, we've all got our views.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of the statements, probably with me. Yeah. I mean, take the other week, Shane. Take the other week. Iain Lee, which I adore, I think he's the best presenter on. It was about this ISA.
Yeah.
Cutting the people's heads off. And I came on to speak to him. I can't think what we spoke about now. And he asked me if I was concerned about it or what it was. I said, of course I am.
Yeah.
I said, I'm worried about it. He made a laughing stock of it after I put the phone down. I was a laughing stock instead of telling me to my face. I'm not worried about myself. Everybody in the country should be concerned.
Yeah.
Look what's happened in France.
But don't you think this idea of, right, OK, let's go out there and let's kill them, let's attack them, let's not bother with... OK, fine. But first of all, we've got to identify who them are.
Well, we know who they are.
Well, we don't. That's the point. We don't, because until
is what come on, cutting people's flaming heads off, and we'll get them. We'll get. It's all right for me down. We'll get them. Have they got them yet? Have they got them, Shane?
Well,
and they never will get them. I'm 72. The IRA has always been on the forefront ever since I was a kid. My mum and dad, when they was young in the 20s, it was the IRA there. You know. There was always the IRA in them days as well.
Yeah.
Not in the 60s and 70s.
But how was that solved, Andy? That wasn't solved by going in and killing every man, woman and child, was it?
No, it wasn't. No. But they did have the army there, don't they?
Well, they did, but they weren't an aggressive. They were more of a peacekeeping army, weren't they? I mean, that was the idea. That was what's supposed to be what it was. All I'm saying is, I know exactly why Tony said what he said at the start of the show. To me, it sounded like the language of a man who is frightened, upset, fed up, frustrated, and feels like nobody is either listening to him or doing anything to protect him. And I fully get that. I completely and fully get that. All I'm saying is that it's OK to a point, but you have to look at the logic of what he was saying, Andy, and saying, right, OK, who do you attack? Where do you go? Who do you fight? And if you start invading countries around the world, aren't you just going to make more enemies? Because you imagine if we had an issue with France and France got their army together and tried to invade this country, what would you be saying? You wouldn't be saying, oh, yeah, actually, we've seen the error of our ways now. What we should do is be all lovely to France because they're here now and they're actually living in our country. You'd say, who the hell are these people living in our country? Why are they living in our country? Let's get them.
I don't think that'll ever happen anyway.
No, I know, but do you see what I mean? If somebody did that to us, we would have exactly the opposite reaction. And so why would it be unreasonable to expect... let's take Yemen, for example. If you say, right, OK, Yemen is the focus of where we are, all the people living in Yemen who probably didn't hate us before certainly would by the time we'd finished, and all we'd done is made ourselves more enemies.
Well, that's what... But also... Shane, you've got to look at it as well. Since this government's been in with all the cutbacks, you know, we've got about 5 fighter planes, haven't we, altogether? 6. Yeah. We haven't even got an aircraft carrier. Yeah. Oh, I tell a lot. Oh, I just forgot. We made one, didn't we? It floated in but they ain't got a plane to land on it.
No.
If there was a problem, Shane, I'm right. Look, if there was a problem and we was brought into it, we've got to go and borrow France's aircraft carrier.
Yeah, but we've got
one at the time.
We've got to decide who we want to be in the world, though, haven't we, for that to happen? I mean, that's a whole new conversation. Do you want more? You want more stringent taxation? You want more cuts in services so that we've got a big army, or do you want a small army? Do you know what I mean? What do you've got to pay for all that? That's the thing at the end of the day, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
That's another story.
I know. It's a whole new conversation. Andy, good to talk to you, mate.
And you, Shane.
Thanks for joining us. Do appreciate it. I must admit, I think your judgment's a bit flawed on Iain Lee being the best broadcaster, but I appreciate you have an opinion. Thanks for being with us, Andy and Ailso in there this morning. I get both sides. What do you think? Because I get both sides, and I'd love to know your thoughts as well. Tony originally came on and he said, iron fist, that's the only thing that people who are perpetrating these kind of attacks will understand. Fine, OK, great. So let's all jump in the tank. Where are we going? Where are we heading to? Where are we off to? Where's the enemy? What do they look like? Who are they? Are they in North Africa? Are they in the Middle East? Are they in the Far East and heading over towards Afghanistan? Where are they? Who are these people? Them, as we very often describe them. Because let's make no bones about it as well. The other thing that we touched on there with Andy is that until attacks are perpetrated, they aren't them, are they? They aren't. They're not the people that we think they are until they actually prove that they are. So you can't surely be advocating going and attacking people who haven't actually attacked you yet. I'm not sure we get very far in the world with that one. However, you might be sitting there listening this morning and think, we're all talking a load of rubbish. 03453 009956, my number. 81333 on the text. Start your message, WM, to join us on the show. You can. I haven't checked my Twitter actually this morning, but you can tweet me as well. Shane on Air, all one word, ShaneOnair, Shane on Air. And let me know your thoughts on Twitter this morning. And you can also email me as well. Same for that as well. Shane on air at bbc.co.uk. Love to hear what you think. Let's find out what's happening out and about on the roads and stuff this morning. 10:15. I'm assuming Liz Hall's putting in a full shift today, and she's back,
always.
She's back with us again this morning. How
a lot longer shift than you, Shane.
Well, I like to think it's sort of small but beautifully formed, my contribution to the world.
Really? Is that what you call it? Here's a spade, and I'll get on with the travel news. Quite a few fallen trees to contend with this morning. So you'll find in Droitwich, Worcester Road is partially blocked as the tree is down at Lawley Way. Around Corley, Tamworth Road, partially blocked as well at Church Lane. Dulwich, Box Trees Road is blocked at Earlswood Road. As you head to Claines, the A449 is blocked in one northbound side around Claines Lane towards the Ombersley turn, the A4133. These are all trees which have come down, affecting the roads this morning. Roadworks causing some disruption along Pershaw Lane, and as you head towards Belgrave Interchange, that's looking quite busy. Around Edgbaston as well, at the Priory Road junction, there's some works going on around there, so it's a little bit busy. There's a bit of congestion around junction 6 of the M42. There's a major event going on at the NEC today, so that's why it's sort of seemingly in fits and starts. Your matchday travel sees Villa fans off to Leicester for this afternoon's game. It's all looking fine so far if you're making an early start onto the M6 and then the M69, or indeed if you make your way along the M42, that's looking okay as well. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 0022 88.
Did you do an extra long one? Did you just as if to prove a point there or something? Is that what just how hard you were working?
No.
What's up at the NEC? Do you know? What's the...
It's an auto car show.
Oh, man. Do you know I haven't been to one of those? Oh, do you remember the bus and truck show? It used to be on at the NEC.
There's always loads of bus and truck shows.
Brilliant.
Going on. There's all sorts of things.
The bus
if there's a show you could do about it, it's there.
Yeah, but the bus show, you used to be able to go through the doors there at the NEC and they'd hand you an anorak as you went in.
Anthony Ford has scored for Walsall.
Friend or foe will share this dream.
It's Thomas with his second, Birmingham City's third.
Let rivalries return. Get behind your team.
The mouth-watering fourth round tie.
Birmingham City against West Bromwich Albion.
You always need someone to share every moment.
What a start to the second half for Saido Berahino.
We'll be there till the season's end.
And it's in! It's 2-0! Kevin McDonald!
Your club is our club.
Benteke with a shooting chance and a goal!
The goal horn awaits, my football friend.
The station for commentary this season.
BBC WM 95.6.
It's a bit dramatic, isn't it? 2 o'clock this afternoon, BBC WM Sport live commentary. Oh, well, Leicester City versus Villa. It's got to be dramatic, hasn't it? Through until 6. Let me tell you some of the other stuff as well, though. 6 o'clock Network Gold. My old mate John Platt with you between 6 and 8, playing some of the top tunes from years gone by. If you like a bit of new music, a bit of young up-and-coming music, 8 o'clock BBC WM Introducing from 8. And then Keith Middleton with you from 10 this evening.
BBC WM
95.6.
Meantime, Shane O'Connor sitting in for Ian Lee between now and midday. And don't forget, it's Daz Hale after me from 12. Now, earlier this week, it's an interesting one. Earlier this week, Danny Kelly was talking about taxi drivers not being able to speak English. And licensing bosses at Wolverhampton have dismissed claims that there are too many foreign taxi drivers in the city. But Mark Bullock, ABC Countdown Cars, has said that he's struggling to employ British workers despite being in one of the worst unemployment hotspots, not only in the area, but in the country. Mark's with us on the show this morning. Morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Difficult to employ people then. How long have you had this problem?
I think it's a problem that's been there for years. It's not only us, it's every taxi company throughout the country. I talk to other taxi owners, and it's not only Wolverhampton.
Why is there a problem? I mean, what's the difficulty? I don't understand it. It doesn't seem to me like a particularly bad job. What's the problem? Mark, you couldn't do us a favour, could you? Can you just stand inside, just out the wind a second? Because all I can hear is the wind on your phone. I'm not going to be able to hear what you're saying. Can you just duck in somewhere a minute? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's it. That's great, mate. Because the wind's blowing around there, so it's quite blustery out. So why do you think it is? Is there a problem with the job? Do you think?
I don't know what the reason is. I can't put my finger on it. I really don't know. I don't know. Perhaps it is. Perhaps that people get too many benefits, or they just don't think that's the job they want to do. Perhaps that's what it is.
Is it a well-paid job? I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how the pay structure works for a taxi driver. What does that? How does that work?
They pay a rental they hire a car off the companies and pay so much money to the company for that car, and then they can work more or less as many hours as they want to work.
Maybe that's part of the problem. Is it the investment that's an issue? That people either, maybe haven't got a licence first off, haven't got a vehicle, or haven't got the money up front to do this?
No, because a lot of companies pay for their licences and they pay for the vehicle. Everything's presented there for them. Basically, they've got to take a test and get a licence, and then work.
So there doesn't seem to be any barrier. I mean, it seems to be that you just should be able to get people locally. I mean, when you end up talking to people who, I don't know, maybe are out of work, you must know people, friends or family or something like that. Have you ever said to them, "Do you want to come and be a taxi driver?" And what was the response?
Well, I don't live in Wolverhampton, you see, that's probably why. But no, I don't know. People are just not interested in doing it. I'd say it's not a new problem.
Is it? I just wonder, because, I mean, a lot of people are saying now that the job has changed, hasn't it? And they do it all off the sat-nav. At one time, it used to be, people used to have a local knowledge and all the rest of it. Is it because maybe the job's changed and taxi drivers are just following a sat-nav now?
They have more than a sat-nav. They have a system in the vehicle that guides them to where the passenger is.
Yeah.
The passenger gets in the car. If the passengers give us a destination, which they normally do, the system then takes them to that destination. They don't need to sat-nav. The system in the vehicle does all the work.
It is kind of like a sat-nav, though, isn't it? It is a sort of... It
does work on the sat-nav, but it just finds the shortest route.
Right. So it's not the working conditions. It's not the investment, the upfront money. It's not the paying conditions. It's not. I'm running out of things. I mean, is it the customers? What's it like being a taxi driver? Is that bad?
Well, I was a taxi driver for 20 years. I really enjoyed it. You meet so many interesting people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Perhaps there's a stigma attached to it. I don't know. I wish I could put my finger on it and recruit more local drivers rather than import them from Eastern European, because it's a cheaper way of doing it by getting local lads.
Is that where they're coming from now? You find it Eastern Europe are the people who are applying for the jobs?
Yeah, they're all Eastern Europeans. There's I know companies in down south, Plymouth, I think there's one there. He's got 300 of them.
Right.
300 drivers from Eastern Europe.
And is that something that he's tried to do? Has he wanted to do that, or is that just the way that it's worked out?
That's the way he's had to go to it. If you've got to expand his business, because we're all in a public service industry.
Yeah.
So if I don't provide drivers when people phone up, then the service suffers and I start losing customers. So
but the other side of the coin, though, is if you start providing drivers and their English isn't great, isn't that going to impact on your business? Isn't that going to cause you problems in the long term?
But their English is good.
Right. So that's not a problem either.
Well, I've got drivers who've worked for me for years and years, and their English is as good as the lads who've come from Eastern Europe. So there's not that issue doesn't arise.
Tell you what I don't get, here's the thing, because you mentioned benefits, and people say this a lot, don't they? They say, well, maybe the benefits are too generous in this country. But if you pick up the newspapers, we're led to believe that people can come here from Eastern Europe and they can claim benefits as well. So if that was why wouldn't they do exactly the same thing and claim benefits? It doesn't seem to make sense, does it?
No, these lads don't claim benefits. In fact, the positive thing about it is that they tend to be married men with children. And the one lad, I'll give you an example, his wife's a pharmacist in Bucharest.
Right.
And she's coming over. Now, this country is screaming out for pharmacists. We have to normally import it from Spain or other countries. And so if that's a typical example of the way things are going, we need his wife to be over here to be a pharmacist, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
no, I do.
Situation.
Exactly. Here's the interesting thing, and I'm not being disparaging to your industry, because I know it plays a vital part in the fabric of an area, but traditionally it's been an entry-level occupation, hasn't it? People have come over, and driving per se, because, I mean, I remember, Irish immigrants would come over in the 1950s, and a lot of them worked on the buses because, it was an entry-level occupation. To me, the interesting thing is, I think that what we're going to find is that people who were actually born in this country are going to get left behind on the jobs market because they're not even going in at the entry-level jobs. Is there a sense maybe that people think that the job is beneath them, do you think?
Perhaps that's the reason. I don't know what the circumstances are or what they believe, but I've got a problem in recruiting drivers. I mean, we're a company that did 1.2 million taxi journeys last year. And I need to satisfy all those customers with people there. And if I can't recruit drivers, then I'll have to look elsewhere. Otherwise, we've got a major problem.
What are you going to do? Well, you haven't got a major problem, have you? Because presumably you can either get on a plane or get on the internet or put an advert in a newspaper in Eastern Europe and say drivers wanted, come and join our band of happy men who are already over here.
Well, that's right. I mean, the last year was the first year we tried it, and from a business point of view, I've now got an untapped source of good drivers.
Right.
I mean, the compliments from the customers as well. Within a week, we got 3 compliments. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People don't normally compliment.
No.
And they'll phone up and if they have a complaint, but to phone up, go out your way and compliment drivers that, to a certain extent, have only been doing the job 2 weeks. I found that really, really pleasing.
And what about the checks that are in place that do you need is it a 5-year check you have to do or something? Is it what happens with that?
In what, a 5-year check?
Like a background? Do you do a background check and stuff on?
The council do all the background check. Yeah, they have to have a DBS or the old CRB. The council have to do all that.
Oh, right. So that's still, and the council don't come back to you and go, oh, this is a nightmare because you've got people who are not from the local area. They're managing to do CRB checks and all the rest of it.
Yeah, Wolverhampton Council have been very helpful. I mean, they've even opened on a Saturday morning for us to get these lads, get the procedure started. I'm very impressed with Wolverhampton Council, the way they've helped us bring the lads in, but get the badges. Not a problem at all.
Let me just bring Mike in because Mike's listening to the show and he queried that one. Mike, what is that? What you were saying? The CRB check and that.
A few years ago, I looked at doing it, but they want not CRB check. They wanted a full 5-year checkable work history, and I was told that for English guys it could take up to 6 months. Where it's checked all the different companies or your periods of time.
Yeah.
So I can't believe that if somebody turns up from another country. And I was told also, whether this is right or wrong, that, people coming in married to marry somebody or whatever, or from another country, they were almost waved through because they couldn't check half of these countries. So,
right.
That was it. But the guys who lived here had to provide full 5 years checkable work history, and it couldn't proceed until they'd done all the checks.
I must admit, that's a really good point. Let me bring Mark in, because I used to, years and years ago, I used to work in the security industry, and we used to have to check 20 years back work record. Yeah. And if somebody came in and said they're from Bucharest or somewhere, I don't know if I'd be able to start. Mark makes a really good point, doesn't he?
Well, I've never heard of your last 5 years of history of where you've worked. They want the last 3 years of your addresses. And then they do come in with a Romanian ID, and if that's clear, that shows on there as well. So they get their equivalent of a CRB
right
when they come here as well. And the council's happy with the procedure. In fact, the council have found up operators who bring in Eastern Europeans for advice, and they've got the advice from the Yeovil Council. Is a big one. That the Yeovil company there. He employs 100 Eastern Europeans.
Where were you working, Mike? Where were you applying?
I didn't. I just had a look at this is about 7-8 years ago.
Where was that for? What area?
Birmingham City Council.
Birmingham City.
And
yeah.
they wanted, as I remember, it was a 5-year checkable work history, and it was going to take some time. So this guy's saying they can come in on a Saturday morning and get. I mean, there's no comparison. The other thing is all the taxi drivers I've come across recently. I can't speak for every taxi driver.
Yeah.
But they're all on child tax and tax credits.
Right.
So if they've got family, and I've come across a lot. I mean, there's a lot of them just work part-time. For whatever reason, they're just apparently One I came across a friend of mine came across recently. He was apparently earning sort of $8,000 a year, apparently.
Right.
And my friend questioned him, said, "You're on $8,000 a year as a taxi driver?" He said, "That's what it says." So, the things I've heard are that a lot of people, and some people who were in taxis, said there's just too many people doing it. You can't make a living.
I know the black cabs say that, don't they? They're really worried about
even private hire.
Private hire as well, yeah.
Private hire. So the actual taxi companies themselves, if they're charging, I don't know what it is, I think it's about 150 quid a week for a radio or 100 quid a week for a radio, they're making their money.
So what are you saying then? Do you think, guys coming in or girls coming in from Eastern Europe, good or a bad thing, Mike, do you think, as a customer? What do you...
Well, I think you need to get to the bottom of it because it's a good point. How come they can make it? I mean, ultimately, you've got to look at if they're coming from abroad. You've got to say, look, the average, the pharmacist in whichever country it was she's coming from, she's probably earning less than he is as a taxi driver. And that is one of the issues. Why? I mean, if you're earning if I went to Switzerland. Or to a country where I could earn $50,000 a year, although although that would be quite a low wage in that country, I'd be quite happy to live in a 10-bedroom, 10 into a house for a couple of years and come back to the country with $60,000, and that's what, in effect, what's happening. People may only be saving £100 a week or £300 a month, but when you take it back to their own country, what that can actually buy is quite a difference, but I'm getting off the point. I don't know whether that's a bad thing either, though. I suppose. I mean, this was the argument that was levelled at people coming from Poland who were working in construction, wasn't it? And saying that they're earning money and then they're going back home. And you think, wouldn't we do that if we had the opportunity? I don't know. Mike, good to talk to you. Mark, as an employer, do you worry? Do you have quiet moments and the beads of sweat appear on your forehead and you think, Is this okay? Is everything? Do you know what I mean? Am I missing something? Is this a scam and I'm missing it? Do you worry about that at all or not?
Never worry at all. The only worry I had, we had an aggressive competitor come into the city, and all the drivers were going to work for this competitor because he was offering deals, free rental, free this, free that, and he was paying drivers to leave me to go work for him.
Right.
So I'm losing drivers going through the door, and I'm thinking, well, I can't recruit drivers. Where am I going to get drivers to sustain this business? And I haven't got a problem at all.
Just tell me something, because I appreciate your perspective as an employer of people in the modern age, and I just wonder, do people like the job centres come to you and say, "Now listen, Mark, you're quite a big employer in the area for semi-skilled or unskilled labour, and we'd like to sort of reach out and maybe if you've got any vacancies, could you give us a shout or whatever?" Do you ever have that conversation? Do they come to you or not?
Yeah, I've been with the job centre for years and years, and you get the odd inquiry, and that's it. That's where it ends.
So what? Take me through the conversation then. So they say, they'll phone up and they go, "Oh, I've got Mr. So-and-so here who's interested in becoming a taxi driver." What on earth do you say to them that they end up going, "You never hear from me"? It's you, Mark. You're the problem. I've figured it out now. What the problem? I'm kidding. What do you say to them? What is it that you're running through? And maybe we can pick out the things that's frightening them or they don't like about it.
It doesn't work like that. What you have to do is go through a procedure to advertise your vacancies.
Right.
And then they contact you. But I had jobs advertised for 12 months in the job centre, and I must have had 2 inquiries. They didn't take the job up anyway.
And did the job centre say, "Yeah, this always happens, we don't understand it, we're not sure, they don't want to come off benefits"? Did they give you any clue or not?
No, they didn't point me what to the problems of why this can't happen. We're going to approach the job centre this year because I believe there's going to be a government initiative to get over 50s off the unemployment. That would suit me great.
It's right up your street, isn't it? Pardon the taxi driving pun, but it is, isn't it, that one? I mean, that would be ideal for you.
Of course it would, yeah. Obviously it would. It would be great if I got a queue of guys local guys waiting to get a badge and work for me. That would be ideal. I wouldn't have to bring in Eastern Europeans. It's been done out of desperation and taking advice from other companies who've gone that way, who've had to because they can't recruit. So Wolverhampton isn't unique. Birmingham would be the same. I know operators in Birmingham who would love to bring in Eastern Europeans, but the problem they have is the test in Birmingham is that difficult that they wouldn't get through the test.
No.
I mean, I don't know what the figures are for new private hire applications in Birmingham, but I believe it's very, very low. I know companies that haven't had new drivers for years.
Right.
That's all that about.
Keep in touch, will you? If it all goes bad in the broadcasting, I might come and take you up on the offer of a job and see how we get on from that.
If you can speak Romanian, that'd be great. We can have a liaison officer then. But we don't need it because they speak English, so...
Yeah, they speak better English than half of us do, by the sound of it. Mark, good to talk to you and good luck and congratulations. I'm glad your business is doing so well. ABC Countdown Cars is Mark Bullock there joining us on the show this morning, telling us about his, well, I was going to say problems, but he seems to have sorted them. Let's have a quick chat with Mike in Acock's Green, who's been listening to that conversation. What do you think, Mike?
Morning, Shane.
Morning, mate. Excuse me. I've got a bit of a cough on me this morning. So if I sound like I'm not here, I'm having a good old splutter. Go on.
Well, I got a taxi recently down in Oxford where I was working.
Yeah.
Me and a mate, and we wanted to go back to the digs, which was like 15 miles away.
Right.
And we found a taxi. He come, picked us up. He didn't speak English. And we got in, and he went off in completely the opposite direction to my destination.
Yeah.
And I said to him, "Oi, mate," I said, it's not that way. It's that way, you know. And he said, no, sat-nav say this way. Sat-nav say this way.
Yeah.
And he took us completely around the ring road of Oxford, because that's where his sat-nav sent him.
Right.
And,
which is okay.
But he had no local knowledge. He couldn't have got himself home without his sat-nav.
Which is okay, as long as you're not paying for the mileage, isn't it? That's where it's a problem. You're thinking, no, this isn't okay, because we're going in completely the wrong direction, and now this is costing us more money than it would have done otherwise.
It certainly was, yeah.
What did you do? Just pay the full fare?
Yeah, it was quite a bit as well. He didn't know. He was a bit worried looking at us. He thought we were going to do a run and all that. Because he'd heard rumours about, but far from it. We just paid up.
Well, you've got to, haven't you? You've got a choice, have you? You're stuck.
Funny enough, it was night time. It was about 8 o'clock, and I was looking at his meter. I said to my mate, it's got 20 something. I said to my mate, is that the time? 20. He said, no. He said, that's the price. That's the fare. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So it's a problem, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. What do you do in that situation? Do you end up complaining to the company then?
They just fob you off, I'm sure this man had only just arrived in the country, not within days, because he didn't speak anything. He kept phoning. He pulled over onto a lay-by a couple of times and phoned up his office and spoke to his gaffer.
Oh,
his gaffer was telling you
that is no good at all. You can't have that, can you? That's ridiculous.
It really was, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm presuming you're not going to use them again, are you?
No.
Good grief.
But it makes a mockery of all these taxi drivers who have to do these, rigorous tests.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is changing anyway, isn't it, now? With this, have you heard of this Uber, which is where you can, if you've got a smartphone, you can actually book a taxi. Yeah. And you can do it on your smartphone, and everybody's up in arms about that. So you wonder whether that's going to change things as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you got.
Changing everything.
I'm glad you got there eventually, Mike. Anyway,
thanks a lot.
You've only just got back in, haven't you?
Yeah.
Good to talk to you, mate. Thank you, Mike in Acock's Green. Edmund is in Wolverhampton. Hi, Edmund.
Good morning, Shane. I'm in Wolverhampton, and I'm looking at 16 taxis in a line in one street.
Yeah.
And every driver is Indian.
Right.
Now, I've lived in Wolverhampton. I'm going on 85. I've been in Wolverhampton since 1947, apart from my army service.
Yeah.
I never had trouble with any taxi. I know ABC, Countdown, Central, Village Travel, Cotswold Cars. I know every one of them, and I've never, ever seen an advert in the Express and Star, the Chronicle, shop windows, jobs where there's private people who are advertising for engineers and all kinds. I've never seen an advert for a taxi driver.
No. I wonder how...
Well,
they don't have to, by the sound of it, do they? Because it sounds like he's got them queuing up. They're queuing up round the block. I don't know. But did you hear what he said, though, Edmund? When the job centre phones up, he said, and they go through the process, and they never hear anything again.
No, they don't, because they're not prepared to go through the test. I was a taxi driver for Central Taxis years ago. I had my own car.
Yeah.
At that time, you had your own car, and you had to apply to the council for the badge.
Right.
Now, before you could do anything, You had to know every street, every route, every company, every industrial estate in the borough. Not in Wolverhampton town centre, in the whole of the borough. That include Bilbrook, Cotsall, Pendiford, Perton, Penn, Maryhill, Bradmore, all over the place. You had to know every street and before you got your badge.
Were you private hire or?
I also worked for the Midland Red, and I worked out at Wolverhampton Midland Red years ago, and I was in the driving school at Birmingham. And the trouble is, our people in Wolverhampton and other areas are not prepared to work the hours or for the money that these Eastern Europeans and other people do.
Yeah.
Now, I, like another man was on before, will leave the taxi thing. What concerns me most is what's happening in France.
Right.
Now, one thing I'd like to know, and nobody, politicians or everybody else can tell me, where are these people getting the arms from?
Yeah.
How did they bring them into the country?
Yeah, I mean, physically, how do they get them across the border? You're absolutely right,
the other thing is, you see, people can come in legally, but they can't bring arms or ammunition with them.
That is a really good point.
Now, I was a professional driver, like a man who was on previously from Birmingham, who was a professional driver. I travelled all of Eastern Europe and the whole of England and Scotland and Ireland for Pickfords. And I never was I once stopped. I had my vehicle searched.
Yeah.
I went from every port in London, Liverpool, Immingham, Dover, Southampton.
Yeah.
And I never once had my vehicle searched. My documents were checked. Where were you going? What's your load? And never, all the stuff was sealed.
Yeah.
And they checked the seal number against the document, and that was it.
I watched one of these. I don't know if you see these border agency programs on the TV the other day, and they stopped a truck, and 20 people jumped out the back of the truck at Dover and ran off, and the guy said, "We're not allowed to chase them for health and safety reasons."
No, they're not allowed to chase them, but you see, why can't France and this country get together and get rid of all them people in Calais?
In the camp in Sangatte.
They're living in woods. They're living in old sheds. They've come up. They're living under canvas. Why don't they remove them all and put them into a compound and assess them? The same as here. There's 350,000 people here, illegal immigrants. They can't account for.
Yeah, but when they do that, you've got a place. There's a place. Is it Villawood in Australia? And they've got a place there where that's exactly designed to do that. And all they end up doing is sticking them in there. They never assess them. They never go anywhere. Edmund, I've got to move on. Thanks for your call. Edmund in Wolverhampton joining us on the show this morning.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call
03453
00
9956.
BBC WM
95.6.
All nationalities we're talking this morning. Let's talk about the German discounter Lidl. They're going to sell kits to help people in the UK celebrate Burns Night on January the 25th. A Burns Night kit. What that's going to look like? Well, I can tell you, it's going to be 8 yards of tartan for your kilt. That's 30 quid. The special shirt, that's 12 quid. And a leather sporran for 10 quid. And then I'm not sure whether they're trying to help things or hinder things here, but you can also buy a set of children's playable bagpipes for $12.99 as well. Brian Wilton is the director of the Scottish Tartans Authority and joins us on the show this morning. Brian, good morning.
Hi, good morning to you.
What do you make of this do-it-yourself Scotsman kit for Burns Night? Are you flattered or absolutely disgusted?
Well, I think really we ought to be flattered. That 8 yards is actually it's already made up into a kilt.
Oh right.
And whilst we're disappointed that these kilts are no doubt woven in Asia and possibly made there as well, the positive side of it is that they're selling these in, I think, 600 plus stores across the UK. So there are going to be thousands of youngsters, young lads, who've never worn a kilt before, who are going to buy one, wear it, see how enjoyable it is, and when they're a bit older and they decide to get married and their bride-to-be wants them in Highland dress, then they'll go and get the real McCoy.
I'm glad you said that it's already made up. I'm thinking I can't do a real dicky bow. I got no chance of making my own kilt before I go out. I have to say, though, You've got to question the logic of the Scots, haven't you? Because, I mean, 100-odd mile-an-hour winds overnight in Scotland, and you choose to wear a kilt as national dress. There's something gone wrong there somewhere, hasn't there? You think you'd move to a less windy country, wouldn't you?
Well, you know, do you remember the Australians wear cork hats? Yes. Corks hanging from their hats
corks,
to frighten the flies off. So
I thought that was just to remind them how many they'd drunk. I didn't know. Is that what it was for? Is it for the flies? Oh, right, okay, I get it now.
So we can do the same up here with kilts, with lead weights instead of corks.
Yeah, but that's not a bad idea, especially weighted kilts.
Yeah.
Is there? Because you know, if you've ever had a friend, as I have, a known Scotsman, you're a very proud nation. You like to speak your mind, and I can't imagine the Scots holding back about a bunch of sassers all dressing up as Scotsmen. I mean, it doesn't seem like they're gonna like this in Scotland.
Well, you mentioned the word flattery earlier on, and I think it is flattering. I mean, you know, we're not all going to rush down south and dress up as Morris dancers. We've got a very proud nation, one of the best national dresses in the world, and I think everybody up here will be delighted.
I think ours is rubbish, isn't it? I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That's the problem, is that, you know, putting a bit of elastic around your trousers and some bells on your shoes. That's not really a costume, is it? I guess really. I mean,
I've watched many performances down south of Morris dancers and loved them, but it's not a national costume as such.
We're not really good with identity. Can I just ask about the shirt? Is it a ghillie? Is that what they call it?
Well, it's called a ghillie shirt. I don't know that ghillies would ever be seen dead wearing a shirt like that, but it's a cheap, informal alternative, and young lads like it.
Interesting. So you're all for this then? You think not bad? What's the whole ensemble going to cost? It's about 50 quid, isn't it? I think to be your very own Scotsman. But
yep, that's it. You're your own Scotsman for a night.
I just love it. And what do you wear underneath? What is the? You're not saying.
Well, that's for you to ask and for all of us to know.
Remaining tight-lipped as ever, Brian. Thank you, Brian Wilton, or is it tight-cheeked under a kilt? I never know. Director of the Scottish Tartans Authority. Don't know, something just completely wrong about that. 13 minutes to 11. Is she still there, Liz? Liz Saul with the travel?
Yeah, I'm just trying to envisage you in a kilt, actually.
I've got good legs, actually. It's one of my best features.
Have nightmares now.
One of my best features, that is. People say I always look better from the back than I do from the front. I think that's what they say, anyway.
Yeah, I can imagine.
See, I just realised what they meant now they've said that. Yeah, sorry, how are we looking out there?
Yeah, there's still a couple of fallen trees in the area to contend with. As you head around Cawley, Tamworth Road remains partially blocked. Pershaw Road still very congested around Cartland Road in the roadworks there. Congestion back to Dogpool Lane in the Sturchley area of Birmingham. The tree has gone from Droitwich and Worcester Road. Looks like it's been cleared out the way of Middleton as well, near to Brickkiln Lane. If you can update us, 08453 002288.
What's your thought on the man in a kilt then? Do you like that or not?
Yeah, I think it's very daring of a man to do it. And if he has good legs, as you say, well...
I always feel it a bit... You know when you see it at weddings, I always think it's a bit cheesy. I don't like it. I
don't like them at weddings and things.
Interesting.
I think that's a bit pretentious. Unless you're a Scottish family, that's fine.
Even so, I don't know. What are you trying to? I don't know. Come on, you Scots people listening to the show this morning. Am I wrong to think that? There's something about it that I just kind of think, wedding in kilts, you know, with all the Scottish thing, always seems a bit tacky to me.
The Voice is back on BBC One.
How I hit the button. Okay, is it this hand?
How does it sound?
In my head, it goes bang.
It may seem fast, but for me, it's slow motion, and it sounds like this.
Are you ready? Pew! Bang! Are you ready? Boom! Boom!
Are you ready? Does it make a noise at all when I hit it?
Oh, what a sound effect.
And then when my seat turns...
This is Tom Jones.
Well, I am
Ricky Wilson.
And me, Rita Ora.
The new series of The Voice. Are you ready?
Tonight at 7 on BBC One and BBC One HD.
All right, well-known feminist Rita Ora. I'm just looking at pictures of her half naked in the papers again today. Also, talking marriage on the show in the next hour between 11 and 12, final hour. And I noticed in the paper, nagging your partner really can wreck your relationship, they say. I'm not supposed to be surprised about that. They're saying if an argument becomes too one-sided, it can cause trouble. Are you nagged in your relationship? Do you get nagged by your other half, 03453 009956. Let me know, 81333 on the text, start your message, WM. And honestly, this is really how I feel, because, very often on the radio, people will come on and they'll say something to try and be provocative. I'm far be it from me to tell people what they should do at their wedding, but there's always part of me, not that I would ever say anything or ever stop anybody doing it, there's always part of me that when I see a guy in a kilt at a wedding, oh, God, if they've got a bagpiper as well. I mean, they're like the work of the devil, aren't they? So why? I always tell that joke about my mate who left his car outside his house overnight. I think it was in Warsaw. And he left a set of bagpipes on the back seat. And somebody broke into his car overnight and left another set. They're horrible, aren't they? They're just vile. But this idea that you're going to dress up as a Scotsman and put the kilt on is that, and I suppose I could have done it, couldn't I? With the Irish tartan, I could have done that and worn the Irish national dress if I'd have wanted to go back to my roots. I don't get it. I just don't get it, and it always leaves me feeling that it's a little bit naff. I was going to say tacky. That's probably harsh because it's somebody's wedding day. And what they want to do, it's up to them. What are your thoughts? Do you look at that and think, oh, that's great, that is. That's brilliant. Look, he's dressed as a Scotsman. Or do you think, bit embarrassing, a little bit tacky? Maybe you did it. Maybe you thought it was tacky. 03453 009956. And if you phone and tell me, it kind of ties in quite nicely with being nagged as well, doesn't it? 81333 on the text. Start your message, WM, and don't forget, I'm on Twitter. Shane on Air is the place to find me on Twitter this morning.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 03453 009956.
BBC WM 95.6.
You can any morning I'm on Twitter, and some of the afternoons and some of the evenings as well. Let's talk to Vic in Kings Norton, talking about taxis. Hi, Vic.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you. What are your thoughts this morning?
Well, basically, what it was is that my wife's son decided to take up taxi, and he was struggling to get a job in Wolverhampton.
Right.
He went to work for a taxi firm there. Unfortunately, when he started working for them, he had to pay quite a substantial amount in base money, he called base money, which is the hire of the vehicle and the hire of the kit.
Yeah.
If the car needed repair, he wasn't given another vehicle. He had to pay for the repair of the vehicle. If
it wasn't his vehicle either. He hadn't chosen this vehicle.
If he broke it, he had to pay for it to be fixed. So effectively, something went wrong with it.
Yeah.
The vehicles he was given were very high mileage, very poor condition.
Right.
Then he had to share the vehicle with somebody else on the night, which means that the company were getting double base money.
Yeah.
He, by the time he paid his base money, he worked 6 days a week. 3.5 days were taken to get the base money. The rest of the money was his.
Oh, no.
I helped him, and of course you are self-employed. You're not employed by the taxi company.
No, so you're having to pay your own PAYE, your own tax, your own national insurance.
If you're ill, you don't work, you don't get
paid. Yeah.
He did 6 a.m. until 6 p.m.
No holiday pay.
No holiday day. 6 a.m. 6 p.m. every day.
Right.
Except for Sunday.
6 days a week, right? Cool.
6 days a week.
I'm starting to.
He was still earning less than £10,000 a year. So he had to give it up because he couldn't make a living.
No.
He's a proud guy. He wouldn't go and take all the benefits that come with it.
Right.
So he had to give it up. He couldn't afford it. He couldn't afford to work. It was actually costing him money to be a taxi driver.
So quite clearly, all taxi driving jobs aren't equal, are they? Some taxi drivers, because the guy we were talking to from ABC in Wolverhampton was saying that isn't the case, and they don't charge for radio, and they just pay their people purely on a wage. No,
he was self-employed. The company that he worked for made him self-employed, and he had to do everything himself. I helped him do his tax returns, and of course he never ever had to pay tax because he never earned enough.
He didn't earn enough now. So what's he doing now then? He got out of it? What does he do now?
He's got out of it. He's now working for a company that refurbish houses and stuff, so he's now got a constant wage. He's now straight with all his money, and life's good for him.
Good
but
man.
Taxi driving made him. It was making him ill, basically.
So you're not surprised at all, then, are you? When you're hearing that people are saying they don't want to go, it's not the utopia that people might want to paint it out to be.
For me, it's a mug's game. And to be fair, when he was talking to a lot of the other drivers there, who again were foreign drivers, they were making their money up on the benefits and child support and everything else that they could possibly claim.
If he didn't want to do that, that's how he would then lose out, I guess. Tell me about, just before I let you go, what were because I always wonder what it must be like in one of these taxis on a Saturday night when you got people drunk and throwing up and all that sort of stuff. Did he experience that as well?
No, he didn't, and the reason why he didn't do that is because his wife was really worried that obviously you heard people being attacked, and some of the other drivers have been attacked, they've been abused, people run off, don't pay. So, yes, he could have made more money if he'd have worked like the late night shifts.
Yeah.
But obviously you do open yourself up to abuse and attack.
Yeah, and it's the risk, isn't it? You think, and it's not just the work in the nights, but nobody. I defy anybody who thinks it's a great idea to go to work to get attacked by a member of the public. You shouldn't have to have that as an option.
No, definitely not.
Vic, give him our best. I'm glad it's working out for him now. Anyway, that's the main thing.
Well, yeah, the best thing that happened to him was him leaving it.
Yeah. That's sad. Vic, thanks for that. Good call, mate. Thank you. Vic in Kings Norton joining us on the show. What do you think? 03453 009956. Let's talk to Nigel in Castle Vale. Hi, Nigel. Oh, hang on. Sorry, it was me. You there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
I'm sorry. You were there all the while. It was me that wasn't. You are a taxi driver? Have been a taxi driver? What's your situation?
No, I'm actually coming from the angle that somebody who's not currently unemployed.
All right.
And if they listen to the previous taxi employer talking about people on benefits and whatnot.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I'm actively looking for work. I definitely want to look for work, and I would consider taxi driving.
Right.
That's an issue.
Right. Would you just listen to what Vic said about his son doing it? Would you still consider it?
It could put some people off. I mean, but there's a solution to every problem, isn't there? You know, protect yourself and so on and so forth. Okay, bringing in the right amount of money is always an issue for everybody. But if you put in enough hours and you work in the right areas, you can do something about it, really. You know.
What about this idea, though, that if you had to pay what he was calling base money, so you have to put money up front as well? If I said to you, I don't know what your circumstances, I don't know how long you've been out of work, but if I said to you, you got to put some money up, could you afford to do that?
Well, personally, I couldn't. But what I would do is actually talk to the job centre, who basically I signed a contract with them to say I'm actively looking for work.
Yeah, yeah.
So in reflection, if they're forcing me to do that, if I have to do that for them, they have to do something for me.
Yeah. So you'd say to the job centre, look, I can't afford this. I can't afford to get a loan because I'm going to have to pay back interest. What about lending me some money so that I could do this?
That's right, because I want to look for. I want to work, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my bit. The other thing is as well, what the other caller touched on was the benefits.
Yeah.
And he said that maybe people on benefits are maybe earning too much. Well, I can only speak for myself. I'm on $72.50 a week.
Right.
Which is not, well, it's not a great deal of money, really.
No.
But talking about employees as well, a lot of employees actually make excuses. It's not just unemployed, it's actually employed. I've actually approached employers for work, and I was actually knocking on the door of one company for a month, and they simply didn't want to talk to me.
Right. Right. So you're finding it difficult then, are you? I mean, what did you do before you were unemployed? What was your line of work?
IT, believe it or not.
Right. No, I do. Would you like to get back into that?
Absolutely.
But you find
that is my number one priority. But being realistically speaking, work is my number one.
How long have you been out of it now, Nigel?
Just over 2 years.
Right.
I trained as temporary as a bus driver, and that's another situation where you are expected to put up with abuse on a daily basis.
Did you actually drive? You were driving a bus, were you, and you packed it in because of that?
Well, I actually failed the final test, and it's just one of those things that happen. You know, trying to get a 40-foot bus around a mini island is pretty tough in anybody's book.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Listen, good luck, mate, and thanks for joining us this morning. I hope it all works out for you, and hopefully talk to you again. Nigel in Castle Vale joining us on the show this morning with his thoughts. What are your thoughts from what you're hearing on the show this morning? You can talk about travel, about the way we're changing. and whether it's actually informing your decision about whether you travel or not. Maybe now you're going to book a holiday this summer and you're thinking perhaps I'm not going to. 03453 009956, my number, 81333 on the text, starting message WM. I'm surprised I haven't had more people saying their thoughts about whether it's a little bit tacky to wear a kilt for a wedding. I always think it every time. I think, kilts, maybe not. Still to come on the show this morning, would a tax break encourage you to stay married? A senior judge is suggesting that married couples get milestone tax breaks. Will that keep you together? And if it does keep you together, is that a good thing? The wife's not very good, but she's very tax efficient.
Side here and clear of the defender and through on the goal. It's in. Dicko.
Blackburn versus Wolverhampton Wanderers live FM commentary this Sunday from 1.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Is that you? I don't love him, but he's very tax efficient. 11 o'clock, let's get the latest news this morning. Here's Nicole Pullman.
Police in France are hunting the girlfriend of the man who murdered 4 people at a kosher supermarket in Paris. Amadi Koulibaly was killed when police stormed the building, but his partner, Hayat Boumediene, is still on the run. Detectives have described her as armed and very dangerous. Both are believed to be associates of the 2 brothers who carried out the Charlie Hebdo attack. They were killed by police yesterday. France remains on the highest possible security alert. The Deputy Mayor of Paris, Patrick Klugman, says they can't allow terrorists to change their society.
The most important thing is continuing living as a democracy, as a free democracy, protecting freedom of press, freedom of speech, and also fighting terror, which is the challenge for every European and world democracy.
A woman has died in a house fire in Birmingham. It happened in Churchill Road in Handsworth yesterday evening. West Midlands Ambulance Service say nothing could be done to save her, and she died at the scene. 52 English Defence League supporters have been given jail sentences totalling more than 75 years after violence at a protest in Birmingham. Police officers were attacked during the demonstration in the city centre 18 months ago. Detective Chief Inspector Simon Wallace says some of the men were given lighter punishments because they handed themselves in.
These range from community orders through to 3 years plus for those behaviours, depending on what they did. Some of them actually saw their pictures on TV, in papers, and they phoned up and handed themselves in. So some of them have had discounts. So it would have been a lot more had some of them gone to trial. And these are sentences that reflect the fact that there's no place for violence in Birmingham.
High winds reaching gale force are battering the West Midlands, bringing down trees onto roads in more rural areas. In Brighton, 2 men are missing after apparently going swimming in the sea during gale force winds and high waves. And in Scotland, 28,000 homes have now been without electricity for 2 days after gales brought down power lines. Aston Villa will be seeking to record a league double over Leicester City when they visit the King Power Stadium this afternoon. That's our commentary game on BBC WM 95.6. Tony Pulis takes charge of his first Premier League game today as West Bromwich Albion host Hull at the Hawthorns. There'll be coverage of that game on BBC WM DAB in Birmingham and the Black Country. Having already made changes to the coaching staff, Pulis says there are still things he'd like to tweak.
Everything's in place for it to be what it is. A Premier League club. There has to be changes, obviously, behind the scenes, and there has to be changes that, you do, but you have to do that gradually. And I think, having spoken to the chairman, I think the chairman understands that, there's 1 or 2 things that we have to improve on. The most important thing is to try and keep the team in the league in what is a very, very competitive league this year.
Birmingham City will be looking to build up on a run that has seen them win 5 of their last 7 championship matches. They're at home to Wigan. The visitors have struggled this season and come to St Andrews second from bottom of the table. Finally, Walsall will want to get back on track at the Banks's Stadium, having lost their 2 home games against Swindon and Coventry. The Saddlers entertain Scunthorpe United. Very windy all day with gales at times, cold with scattered showers and a top temperature of 7 Celsius, 45 Fahrenheit. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
Thanks, Nick. I'll stay where I was this time. I just couldn't stand the physical exertion of getting back.
Shane O'Connor.
On BBC WM
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
I thought it was just easier in there. I just stay where I am and it's a lot easier, isn't it? Listen, thanks for your calls. I've had some great calls this morning. morning. Ian's a very lucky lad to have an audience like this, and some really sort of well-measured and sensible comments. 03453 009956 our number, 81333 on the text. Start your message WM. Still keep those calls coming. It's Shane sitting in for Ian Lee between now and 12. And we'll kick around some of the subjects that we've talked about in the last couple of hours as well, because it's been so interesting to hear your thoughts. One of the things, if you just joined us, one of the things we've been talking about is just in the aftermath of all the things that have happened and are still happening in France. Are you now in a situation where you are going to change where you travel, how you travel, the places that you go to, the holidays that you take? Are you going to find yourself in a situation where you think, actually, things have got to be different now? It all feels too close on, and too real, and too very much in our own backyard now as a result of this. Or maybe you've already done that. Maybe you've already found that you've started to change the way that you live your life, the way that you go on holiday, the places that you go to, the way that you travel on holiday as well. Let me know whether it has an impact on you. We had some incredible calls. We had a great call from a lady earlier who was saying when she goes to the United States and was toying with the idea of whether she would actually fly direct into Washington. And the fear, the real, very real, tangible fear that she felt by doing that. So that was quite an interesting one. 03453 009956. We're also, on a lighter note, talking about whether it's tacky to dress as a Scotsman, particularly if you're not a Scotsman. There's news out this morning saying that Lidl are going to sell these kits to help people celebrate Burns Night, and it's basically a dress as a Scotsman kit. Which I don't know. I don't know whether it's going to cause more trouble than it's going to save. We've been talking about taxis on the show this morning and the fact that a Wolverhampton taxi company says they can't find any drivers from the UK. Most of their drivers are coming from Eastern Europe. Why would that be, given that Wolverhampton is one of the unemployment hotspots in the whole of the country? What's going on there? What's the problem? Any of those that you want to comment on, or, of course, marriage as well. We're going to be talking marriage, and there's a suggestion. Do you remember when you were used to, in the old days, if you got married, you used to get a one-off tax break, didn't you? If you got a married couple's allowance. Excuse me. They got rid of all that and said, no, we don't want to do that. Now, a senior judge is suggesting that you get milestone tax breaks. So as you stay together longer, you get more tax efficient, you get more tax breaks, you save money, you actually get money back through being married. What a brilliant idea, some would say, because it would enable people to stay together for longer. It would give them some kind of incentive. But money isn't everything, and you're supposed to stay married because you love each other and because you've got a great relationship and because you mean the world to each other. That's the theory behind it anyway. So what do you think about this idea of waving some £20 notes in front of people's faces and saying, there you go, you can have one of those if you stay with the missus or your husband for another couple of weeks, you can get some money. Isn't it a bit vulgar and a bit crass? We'll talk about that one on the show in this hour as well, and I want to know what you think. 03453 009956. Look across at her or him, your partner, your life partner, and think, when times are tough, if you got a tax rebate, would you stay? Maybe you're divorced. Maybe you're thinking, actually, do you know what? If I'd have got, as it went on, time went on, if we'd have stayed together, I'd have got tax breaks, then would it have kept you together?
West Bromwich,
Solihull,
Perry Beaches,
Castlevale.
have your say across the West Midlands.
BBC WM
95.6.
I think that's a great one. I did the tax breaks. I'm really fascinated to know what you're going to say about that one. We've been talking about taxis and sat-navs and the fact that we can't get drivers from the UK to drive taxis in Wolverhampton. Dave's in Albury. Hi, Dave.
Oh, Shane.
What were your thoughts this morning, mate?
Well, I was listening to, I think it was Danny Kelly yesterday, and one of the head chaps was on from Wolverhampton COA.
That's right.
And he was on about the complaints that they get, and he said he's even had situations where these drivers have given the passengers the tom-tom and told them to put the postcode in where they want to go.
You are joking.
No. One of them wanted to go to New Cross Hospital, and he was dropped at the Mercedes dealership in the middle of Wolverhampton because he didn't know where the hospital was.
I mean, that one's even got signposts to it, hasn't it, really? So there's no excuse for that. I mean, I haven't been to Wolverhampton for quite a while, and I could take you to New Cross Hospital, no problem at all, without any effort at all, because you know roughly the area you need to be, and you follow the signs the rest of the way.
Well, yeah. I mean, he wasn't very happy, this chap from COA.
No, I can imagine.
I mean, I know this Asian family, and this kid's worked on the buses out of Oak Lane, West Bromwich, for 8-9 years.
Yeah.
And every 2 or 3 months, he used to do a week's overtime. And I was speaking to him, 2-3 months back. I said, "You're going home this year, taking the kids home." He said, "I can't afford it." He said, "All these Eastern Europeans are coming over and doing the overtime on basic rate."
But do you know, it really makes me laugh, this does, because isn't this what we were saying in the 1950s for the people who were coming from the Caribbean, the people who were coming from Ireland, and the people that were coming from India and Pakistan?
Yeah.
So why are we surprised? Do you know what I mean? I sit here and I think, we learnt nothing, have we? We haven't learnt anything at all.
The country's gone backwards.
We're completely surprised. Well, it hasn't. We're just doing the same thing. It's cyclic, isn't it, surely? Yeah. The whole thing is a cyclic situation. So, and because of the fact that driving jobs, like driving buses and driving taxis and stuff like that, are entry-level jobs, then surely that's we've got to expect this is what's going to happen, isn't it? I don't know. Sometimes I do wonder about whether we ever bothered looking at any reference books and going back in history at all. I don't know.
He's thinking of leaving the buses, and this is
because the money is not good enough. He can't earn enough to support his family.
Yeah, because they got that many new drivers.
Right.
I'll put it a nice way. That they've got them.
So they're so overstaffed they don't need him to do any extra.
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
Because these new drivers are doing the overtime on basic rate.
Yeah.
And he said it's not fair. He says even the unions, at one garage, at this bus company, it's a massive bus company. They've got coaches as well.
Right.
I ain't going to mention.
No, don't, because I'll only have to get them on, and it'll be a nightmare then. So.
And he says they're even giving the shop stewards a backhander.
Right. For what?
To keep the peace with the drivers.
Do you know, I don't know. I mean, the whole thing, we started off talking about taxis. The whole thing to me, I mean, the buses, I kind of get that. If you've got enough people and you can bring them in from overseas, unless the government says this has got to stop and puts their foot down, they're going to do it. They're running a business. I kind of get that. This idea, though, that you get into... Do you know, if I got into a taxi... And I don't care who they are, what colour they are, what country they're from or whatever. If I go into a taxi right now, Dave, and the driver said, put the postcode in the sat-nav, I'd go, I tell you what, I'll do better than that and I'll get out.
Well, the thing is, what about if you've come from another city...
Yeah.
And you're visiting friends. Let's say you've got Wolverhampton train station.
Yeah.
And you get into a taxi.
Yeah.
And you don't know their postcode, do you?
My brother lives in Bury St Edmunds, right? And if I went down on the train and got out of the train station there and they said, what's the postcode? I don't even know. I don't know what his postcode is.
Well, this is what this chap from COA was on about.
I love it.
He said the amount of complaints that they've had of people.
Yeah.
And he says that, like, he's on the road as well. He says, and he gets talking to people, and they're telling him.
Come on, then. Here's the killer question, Dave, and I'm not expecting you to answer it in a way because it is a huge question. But here's the question: what do we do? What do we do? Is this something that we need to now regulate and to say, okay, we don't have people coming in from Europe, or if they do, they have to be given a second opportunity? You see, what do you do with this? Because on the one hand, you want a vibrant economy and you want people to be able to come here and to work, and you want to be an accommodating and welcoming country. But if the system's broke and it means that people who were born and brought up here can't get a job, then that's not working, is it? So what would you do? Any thoughts?
You've got to cap it, haven't you? You've got to say enough's enough. You know, and
do you just think that's the problem? Is there are too many people allowed from other? Because the interesting thing is, I don't know if you ever tried this, but if you just sit down and I think you can do it online now. If you want to go and live in Canada, for example, I couldn't just turn up in Canada and go, hello, I've come to drive a taxi for you now. Put your postcode in the sat nav, and I'll take you to downtown Ontario. Do you know what I mean? They have a system and a point system. Why can't we just do that? I don't understand what the problem is. I don't know.
I know a taxi firm not far from where I live, and they send their drivers out for 3 weeks with the drivers,
right,
to make sure they know the job.
Yeah, they know what's supposed to be doing.
When they've took the private hire badge, before they even give them a car.
But what about the guy from Wolverhampton who runs the taxi company? He said to me this morning, we get phone calls now from people saying, thank you so much, congratulations, what a brilliant service, from the drivers that he's got that have come across from Eastern European countries to come and work for him. He said, and we never used to get that before.
Something's wrong somewhere.
I think we've hit the nail on the head there. Dave, good to talk to you, mate.
I'm not saying anymore, but
No.
I think something's wrong somewhere.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dave. Thank you. I agree with you on that one. Dave in Albury joining us on the show this morning. Matt Solihull is next. Stay patient, Matt. Be with you in a sec. Let's put our postcode into the sat nav and find out what the travel brings up with Liz all this morning. That's outrageous. That is. How are we looking, Liz?
Not too bad on the whole, actually, Shane, this morning. As you make your way around Sturchley, however, the roadworks on Pershaw Road at Cartland Road are causing a lot of congestion. In particular, as you head inbound, it's back to Dogpool Lane. The A38 is looking a bit busy in places around Selly Oak, and as you head around the Selly Oak Triangle, going in and out of town as well. That tree has been cleared out of the way finally on Tamworth Road at Church Lane in the Corley area. Traffic is moving okay around Dartmouth Circus at the moment. Your match day travel sees Villa fans heading off to Leicester for this afternoon's game against Leicester City. The M6 is looking clear, no delays to report either there or on the M69, the M42, one of two routes you can take to the East Midlands for this afternoon's match. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
Is that a thing now, Solihull? What did you say, the Solihull Triangle?
Selly Oak Triangle.
Is that a thing? Is that
it's
a real?
Very well known, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that you're on about the bit where Frankie and Benny's and
that's the one.
The bus garage
yes,
and all that.
That's it.
Where you have to drive round. Is that what they call that?
It's a Selly Oak Triangle. If you look at it on a map,
yeah,
that's what it looks like. But actually, because of it's a sort of one-way system, kind of.
I've
there.
never heard that before. You know, that's a thing, is it? I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah,
you learn something new every day.
It really, because it won't get anywhere near the recognition it deserves until Barry Manilow makes a song about
Danny
it.
Kelly. I'll let you know why David Cameron personally threatened to have me bumped off. Listen to this.
I told you I'd probably have to kill you, so I can't tell you that.
Now, if you can fill in the bleeps.
Well, if I told you our strategy, I'd have to have you killed.
Oh, our strategy?
I think you're asking him where he's going on holiday, Dan.
I love it. If I told you I was going to Lanzarote.
I told you I'd probably have to kill you, so I can't tell you that.
Danny Kelly. Well, now we can reveal it. You'll hear the answer. Where do you run? Do you have a treadmill at number 10 or something?
I have got a treadmill, but I told you where I went for a run. I'd probably have to kill you, so I can't tell you that.
Weekdays from 9.
BBC WM
95.6.
I said, I love you. I thought that was my first guess. If I told you I love you, I'd have to kill you. And my second guess was if I told you I had a beautiful body, I'd hold it against you, isn't
Shane
it?
O'Connor.
On BBC WM
95.6. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
Failed. I'm sorry, I failed. 17 minutes past 11. Shane O'Connor sitting in for Ian Lee between now and midday. Matt's been waiting patiently. You're a good man. Thanks, Matt. What do you got for me this morning?
Good morning. You have a great show.
Thank you.
Yes. Are you a plastic...
It's not me. I've got to be honest with you. It's not me. It's Joe's doing all the work. Joe Tidman does all the work. I just sit here and just chat to people. So she makes me say that.
Are you a plastic paddy, or is it me, a paddy, talking to another paddy?
Well, no. I'm second generation. I was born in the sort of east of the country, Walsall.
Oh, Walsall.
Yeah.
Very nice place. I worked in it indeed.
But
all the jobs you were talking about, I have done them, from taxi driver to bus driver to being a coalman, a dustman.
Well, that was the way, wasn't it, Matt?
Practically everything.
Can I just tell you, my dad's from Leitrim, by the way. He worked briefly on the buildings. He worked for Waits briefly.
Waits, I know Waits to build.
And then he worked for Dunlop for about 35 years.
Yes, but people today, a lot of young people here today, I mean, I'll say British-born people, whether they're Irish descent or Scotch descent, they don't want jobs. They just want enough to enjoy themselves.
No, that can't be right. I work with lots of young people, and there are people,
There is a lot of young, good young people, but there's a fair amount of the other type that doesn't want work, and I know a good few that doesn't want work.
I must admit, and I don't know whether this says a lot about me as a person, but I from time to time I watch Jeremy Kyle. I don't know if have you ever seen it, Matt?
No, I'm not into them at all. I don't have a television. I am not into. I am a radio man.
The only reason I say I would recommend it if you know a neighbour that's got a TV is because it's a bit of an eye opener. Because the two things you notice about people who appeared on Jeremy Kyle is A, they are very reluctant to work. They are generally not working. They're on benefits and they don't appear to have a reason why they shouldn't be. And B, they're very fond of drug use. That's the two things that I take away from that. So I think you're right in a way. I don't think it's all young people, but there is certainly now a section of our society, I think, who have probably been brought up and seen their parents not work to think that it's okay. Now, you probably, like me, your parents wouldn't have allowed you to not work. I mean, it's not an option. Go and get a job.
It was quite different. I had to work because at home you were hungry.
Yeah.
But I have left Ireland 70 years ago and I never was back.
Where are you from? Whereabouts?
From Sligo.
Sligo. So we're not far away from my dad then, are you, really, Roscommon?
That's right. And my mother was born in Aldershot.
Right.
I'm an ex-soldier. I was stationed in Northern Ireland.
So you would have been out in a kind of rural sort of setting where you'd have known real poverty then.
There was in the 30s. I mean, there was very little there. Although people were very happy, they put on a good front as if they were doing well, but they weren't. They weren't. But they weren't in a bad mood or anything. I don't know. We tried to get by. I left Ireland very, very young because my mother was born in Aldershot, and I never went back there. That's 70 years ago. But
do you think there is a case in point to answer though? But because of your upbringing and because we're talking about poverty now. We haven't really got a clue. Most people haven't got a clue what we're talking about, as you say, to go hungry and all of those kind of things. But we talk about poverty now. It means you haven't got an iPad or you haven't got a PlayStation or something like that.
I haven't got them even now.
Do you know? But I'm just wondering whether that kind of knowledge, what it's like to have nothing, is the driving force for you never entertaining the idea that you couldn't work. You had to work. It was a primal thing. Isn't that part of what we're saying here, do you think?
Yes, well, my family work. My family has done well. One of my sons is in property business. My daughter works for the health and safety. She's in charge of a lot of people now.
Right.
And my other son is in shop fitting and... that's
not easy work.
Because I always worked from 5 o'clock in the morning. I often worked from 5 o'clock in the morning. I was a haulage contractor.
Right.
I worked from 5 o'clock in the morning to 5 the next morning. I was in all the strikes. I had big lorries on the strikes. I had the windows broken in them, and I know Scargill and Red Bravo and
yeah. What was that in the 70s? All of that sort of when that was all cracking off.
Strikes, yes, and I worked doing the freeze up, and lying on the lorries trying to get them going and different things. Anyway, we'll get back to this French thing.
Go on.
People has got to change, I'll tell you that, because you don't know now whether the person living next door to you could be a terrorist,
But hasn't that always been the way? I mean,
it hasn't, not at all.
You're remembering what kind of stick did you get in the 1970s when the IRA were at their height of their activities, and you walked into a room with an Irish accent?
Yeah, well, when the bombing in the town, we were insulted only by a few now, because the Brummies that I knew were the finest of people, and they knew that I would not be involved, and that I was a British soldier, and that I wouldn't, be involved. I didn't have a lot of hassle with them.
But there was still, my point is, though, Matt, my point is there were still people who were suspicious of you. There were still people who insulted you in the streets, and there were still people who would have said, "Oh, it's getting so bad now, you don't know whether your next door neighbour's a member of the IRA or not."
That's right. But it's different today. I mean, I seen the time here in Birmingham in the 50s when you could walk from the Bullring to Shirley at night and not one would interfere with you. Not one person except an odd car might pull up and say, "Did you want to lift?"
Did you want to lift? Yeah, different times.
It's completely different now. The French were very slow in managing this problem they had. Now, if that problem was here, I think the British service would get into action a lot quicker.
Do you agree then, knowing what you know, your Irish background, you're living in the part of Ireland where you did, where you would have seen, I would have guessed there would have been, a lot of kind of border activity and things like that, so you
not down where I come from. No, and the funny thing to say, during the war, any IRA sympathiser was interned, and I was talking to people that spent 5 years in the Corrin internment and different prisons just because of their views.
Yeah.
Now, Churchill didn't mention that, but De Valera had done that for Churchill. He made sure that the IRA would not attack here, with them being attacked by the Germans.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned internment, because we started this show off this morning with a guy called Tony who phoned in, and he was saying, iron fist, you've got to come down hard on terrorism, and you've got to attack. And my point would be, is that what works? And what's your view on that? Because internment was a good example, because those were people who nothing was proved against them, who were locked up.
The war. Well, I remember in the 30s there was an IRA problem here in Coventry. I don't know whether you and Barnes and McCormack, and they were putting bombs in phone boxes. And
do you know, I recently, actually, I didn't know about that, but I recently heard the story about it.
They were hung,
that's
right.
Were
hung, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and very right so on. I remember that, and it was all the talk around where I come from, because they come not so far from where I was born. And the people there were outraged about this hooligans doing this thing to innocent people trying to go about their business, you know.
Yeah, it was a bicycle bomb, wasn't it? I remember.
Something like that.
That's right, yeah.
And into letter boxes where the postman, I think, went for the letters, and there was a bomb in there. It was something daft and silly.
Yeah.
Only mental people would do a thing like that. But they were still a danger, weren't they?
But doesn't force, if you respond with draconian force in that kind of situation, doesn't that make things worse rather than better, Matt, do you think?
I don't think so, no. It's going to pass that now. These people in France, they deserved to be shot. But what I can't get up to is why the French were so slow in chasing them, If they were here, they would be found very fast.
Do you think so? Do you think we'd have done a better? I mean, the deployment, didn't they deploy 80,000 police and troops at one stage?
Well, that's what I said, with 8,000 police. Well, I mean, I'm an ex-soldier, and I mean, I'm a pensioner and an advanced pensioner, but I certainly do better than that.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'll ring off now. I'm cooking me dinner.
Hey, before you go, quick one. Does it worry you? Are you frightened by all this?
No, not now. No, I'm going to pass worry, and I'd take it on the chin.
Go on, your spuds will be burning over.
I've been through the worst of it. I'll tell you that. My two mates were killed beside me here in an accident at a building site, and I got a bravery award. I pulled a fellow out of a gas explosion. He died 2 days after.
Oh my word, that's awful.
From that, yes, and then I was. I was in tight corners now and again, and I was a doorman as well. I boxed for a living as well on the fairgrounds. And
you're a good man. Listen, don't let your dinner get ruined.
Anyway,
good to talk to you.
You have a great show, and thank you for having me on.
It's been great to talk to you. Thanks for that, Matt. I always appreciate a different perspective. Matt from Solihull joining us on the show this morning. What do you think about what Matt's saying? And some of the callers that we've had on earlier on as well. If you want to throw your 2 pence in, you know where we are between now. Only about half an hour. Gosh, it's gone quick. About half an hour of the show to go. If you want to have your say, 03453 009956. If you're just tuning in, Shane O'Connor sitting in for Iain Lee between now and midday. Here's one for you, and this will kind of lighten the mood a little bit, because I do wonder about whether this is a great idea or whether this is just really quite crass and crude. They're talking about a tax break to encourage you to stay married. A senior judge has suggested that married couples should get milestone tax breaks, incrementally, so the longer you stay together, the better the tax deal that you get. Sir Paul Coleridge, it was, who said the allowances should reward families that remain stable, encourage couples facing a breakup to try and stick it out. The system would also mean that if you split up, often at high cost to the taxpayer, then you'd obviously have to pay some of that back in the form of changed taxation. Great idea. I want to hear from you today. Great idea, or do you think it is just absolutely bonkers? Let's have a chat with Harry Benson, who's a research director of the Marriage Foundation and joins us on the show. Hi, Harry.
Good morning.
You were actually there when Sir Paul was suggesting this, weren't you? I think were you in the same room with him?
Well, I work with him. He's my colleague. He's spent years and years in the High Courts looking at court cases and seeing the terrible costs of family breakdown. I spent years and years teaching couples how to have great relationships, and I've taught thousands of couples. And I think the key to this thing, it's an interesting idea that the longer you stay married, the less tax you pay.
Yeah.
And I mean, we wouldn't be talking about vast amounts, but I mean, it's something that would essentially reward you for your stability. I think the reason why it's not a bad idea is that money definitely changes people's behaviour. Incentives definitely work.
Right.
And why support marriage rather than other kinds of relationships? Well, the bottom line is that you hear a lot about divorce, but what you don't hear so much is that 7 out of 10, the majority of parents who marry will stay together, whereas 2 out of 10 parents who don't marry will split. So only 2 out of 10 parents who don't marry will stay together. So there's a real issue about getting couples to commit when they have children or before they have children, which really helps people stay together. And when you buy into something, particularly for us blokes, when men make decisions about the future, when we say, right, this is what our plan's going to be, and I really bought into it, then that makes us much more likely to stick at it. And that's particularly true for men more than women. Now, women are particularly good at committing anyway. But the decision is something that men need to make. We have to sort of cross a bridge or a threshold or something like that.
So we're not saying kind of huge amounts here, but you're saying just the fact that there is an acknowledgement financially, you believe would make a difference?
Well, I think it would actually, because at the moment, we've got a system where the only real financial incentive in family life is, oddly enough, to split up, because if you're on anything if your family income is anywhere less than about 30,000 quid, which is the vast majority of us, you're probably receiving tax credits, and if you live apart, you're £7,000 better off for one child than you are if you live together. And many couples actually say, well, let's cheat then, and let's pretend to stay apart.
I've come across I've come across that exact situation. You're right, people.
And that's the only real thing that we have at the moment, where you get extra money for doing something in your family life.
So wouldn't we be better placed, Harry, to sort? That's the first one to address, isn't it? Surely we've got to get that one sorted first.
Sorry, to get what?
The idea that if you live separate lives and pretend that you're not together, you're better off in a tax credit kind of way. That needs addressing before we change the income tax situation.
Yeah, you're right. It does, and it's a shocker. But that's a really difficult one to sort out
because if you bring in what Sir Paul's saying and you leave the other system as it is, it's a mixed message, and people will think, well, I don't know what to do now.
I don't think so, because I don't think so, because I think that people would say, at last, the taxpayer, the state, the government is at last recognising that if I make a commitment to try and stick it out, and obviously not everybody makes it, but if I do make some sort of formal commitment, and marriage is the way you tend to do that, then the longer we survive each other, then we're going to get some sort of reward for it. And it might well be enough to offset part or all of this huge problem that we have, that the state pays people far too much money to live separately than together. Now, I mean, not everybody takes advantage of that, and most people are incredibly decent and honest. But, we're talking about 500,000 people at least pretend to be lone parents when they're not. And that's pretty shocking. I'm not sure the problem is going to be solved by doing anything about that particularly, although it's a really difficult one. I've been involved in policy discussions for years over this, and there are all sorts of different things have gone over the radar. So I think what's interesting about what Sir Paul said was that it's an idea that hasn't really seen much light of day for some years. I mean, we've heard about the 200 quid tax break that the Prime Minister has floated, which frankly is neither here nor there against the 7,000 better off.
Yeah. I mean, you don't
this
need...
is an interesting one.
You don't need me to remind you that and I'm not blaming you for this, you were no more to blame for this than I am, but we had a married couple's tax allowance, And we blew it. We got rid of it. So presumably there wasn't an appetite. So why is there an appetite now?
Well, no, we had a married couples allowance, but we also had, those of us who are old enough to remember will remember there was an enormous tax break that you got if you had a mortgage, and if two of you lived together and without getting married and had a mortgage, you get double the tax break. And so there were all sorts of things that offset it. So it never really made much difference. I mean, in the end, I think we have to decide. We've got this massive issue of family breakdown. Nearly half of all our teenagers sitting GCSEs this year will only be living with one parent.
Yes.
Over 4 million kids of all ages spent Christmas with only one parent, and I've experienced that myself. And it's just, we need to be thinking about doing something about it. And the bottom line is what works in relationships is when couples buy into a future together. And we've got to find a way of getting more people to do that.
Here's the flaw in the plan, though, as some would see. I mean, I'm married, so it doesn't give me a problem. But some would say, well, maybe marriage isn't the best way to keep people together. And of course, the jury's out for a lot of people on that one, Harry, isn't it? So, I mean, we're kind of forcing people down a road that we don't even know is going to help them.
Well, we do know. I mean, that it's crystal clear, really. I mean, I've just given you one tiny piece of evidence. 7 out of 10 parents who marry stay together while they're bringing up kids. 2 out of 10 who don't marry stay together. There's a gigantic gap. If you have those sorts of gaps in any other field, smoking or seatbelt wearing or driving cars too fast or healthy eating or all these other things, there are endless policies that government throws at us, and they bribe us and they cajole us and they penalise us and they tax us and they do all sorts of stuff to try and get us to behave better and not behave badly. Then you've got something that's so obviously different, and there's so much great science, and everyone, regardless of what the evidence says, everybody knows that if men buy into stuff, they are much more likely to stick at it.
Is that evidence, though? I mean, because we don't know what are the factors are. On the face of it, you're quite right, that research saying 7 in 10 or 2 in 10 or whatever, but we don't really know what the full... I mean, we're drawing the conclusion that marriage is the thing that's keeping them together, and that might not necessarily be the case.
Well, the question is what. Do you know
what I mean? What I'm saying is that 90% of professional people could get married, whereas only 20% of unemployed people get married.
Yeah,
so therefore, it's their outlook or their professional life or their salaries that's keeping them together. You're right. Assuming it's marriage, and it isn't necessarily.
You're right, but you're only partly right.
Yeah.
There is a difference, and actually, whether couples are married or not married, there's a gap in likelihood of staying together if people are better educated or on higher income. It's kind of obvious, really. You're cushioned by income. You're cushioned by your circumstances. If you're more comfortable, life's a lot easier. You have less reason to squabble. I mean, there may be more reason for some people, but if you're living in some awful place and life's really difficult and it's noisy and there's things going on around you which distract, of course it's difficult to hold any relationship down. So, yeah, there is a difference there. And it's true also that people who marry, on average, tend to be better off. But even when you take all those things into account, there's still this great big chasm in breakup rates between those who marry and those who don't. And you've just got to think, why might that be the case? And the reason why that might be the case is because when us blokes buy into something and say, we want to make a plan for the future and we're going to do that, and we decide it, then we're much more likely to stick at it. We'll stick it out.
See, here's where I have a problem with it, and you seem quite a reasonable guy to me, and what you're saying doesn't seem hugely outlandish. However, the bit about guys buying in, and this is from my own personal experience as well, I was flabbergasted the amount, the investment, the financial investment you could go to for the day itself, and for me, I saw that as a kind of like, you spent that kind of amount of money, and people will spend anything from a few £100 to tens of thousands of pounds. And there's part of me, Harry, that thinks, for goodness sake, if you can't commit to a relationship where you spent 30 grand on a wedding and all the rest of it, and and getting the cake and the cars and the photographer and all that business, if that isn't a financial investment and financial stake in it, a few quid on your tax ain't going to make a difference, is it?
Well, don't forget that a lot of people who do go overboard on this, and the wedding day has ultimately got not a lot to do with the marriage, and it's not the important bit. But the wedding day can have a big effect because it can send couples into debt because they've got this mad idea that you have to have some giant frou-frou wedding and you've got to do it like Hello Magazine do it, and it's a nonsense. And I mean, when I got married, I got in the mid-80s. We had a glass of something fizzy and some small eats, and that was about it. In fact, I didn't even get any small eats because they run out by the time I got to them at my own wedding. That was it. And we had what we thought was quite an extravagant wedding then. By today's standards, I'm with you here. I'm completely with you. The wedding is overblown and overinflated. It's a gigantic frou-frou balloon.
Maybe there's a difference between putting the money across the counter and having it taken away from you by the state. Perhaps that hasn't, because that can have an influence, can't it? It's like you think, well, that's my money to choose how I spend, but what? You're going to take this money off me? Hang on a second. And that's a different feeling, isn't it?
Yes, it may well be. But these are all sorts of things that people who do policy things and Treasury can think about. I mean, the idea really was just to float this idea and just see where it goes.
What was he saying? Was he saying income tax? Was that where he wanted to? Because, again, I see, a lot of people, and we've been talking about this as another strand on the show this morning, but, there are a lot of people out there who don't work. And I know, we all get up and do our bit, Harry, and you kind of assume that everybody lives their life like you, but you very soon realise there are an awful lot of people, generationally, it's been handed down to them that not working is okay, and so if it's an income tax thing, then it probably won't affect the people that you want to target anyway, will it?
I'm not sure, actually. I think the majority of decent working people do want to do the right things, and we're never going to be able to set, you're never going to be able to set policy that covers all the options. You shouldn't be setting policy on what the richest people do. You shouldn't be setting policy entirely on what the poorest people do.
No.
And one of the things that's always struck me is that we spend an enormous amount of time picking out the pieces of when things go horribly wrong. What we don't do, and what we're not very good as a country, is dealing with where the mainstream is at. And I think that if you point the mainstream in the right direction, then other people will follow and things will change. After all, it's only back in the early 60s, which is, frankly, I was a toddler then, but it's not that many years ago that pretty well everybody who had a baby was married at that point.
Yeah.
Rich and poor, made no difference. 95% of births were to married couples. And that's been true all the way through the 20th century and back into the 19th century and before. So people were making commitments regardless, and people know that they want to make commitments. But yes, the cost of a wedding is a barrier, and there are other barriers. People say, it doesn't matter so much anymore. It jolly well does, though. Even if you don't marry, you've got to make that decision about the future. That's the thing that really matters.
And the final point, it's been fascinating to talk to you, but the final point, you mentioned kids a lot of the time. This is what we're talking about, isn't it? Just to be clear, this is marriage around bringing up children and about stability and about a stable home and knowing that you're going to have your parents there for you, which is kind of, I think universally agreed, is good for youngsters, isn't it? I mean, that's where we're coming from with this.
Without a shadow of doubt. I mean, in fact, if people want to sleep around and do whatever they want, they can do what people can do what they like. As soon as children become involved, then it has the potential to become the state's business, and it becomes the state's business when things go wrong and when it affects children, so that we end up then, for example, 60% of lone parents are getting housing benefit, only 10% of couple parents get housing benefit. Quite right that we support lone parents, but we do it because they have kids, not because they're an individual on their own. And in the end, this is about supporting the next generation who don't have a choice. We have a choice today of whether we make commitments about our future, and that's what we should be doing. We should be encouraging as many people as possible to do that, and then we will have we won't have to sort of read headlines like 4 million kids spent Christmas with just one parent, and awful stuff like that.
I can't wait to get home and tell the wife she's going to have to pull her finger out and be more tax efficient. I love it. Harry, thanks for joining us this morning. Harry Benson, who's the research director of the Marriage Foundation. You got about 15 minutes to get your thoughts in on that one. Crass as an idea, or do you think actually no? What Harry's saying makes a lot of sense, and as far as you're concerned, if you were going to get some kind of tax rebate, you'd be up for that. You think it's a good idea to try and keep people together. I'm not convinced about the statistics about, whether people stay together because they're married or whether people stay together because they have the commitment as far as they're concerned with their children. I don't know. I'm not convinced about that one. It's quite interesting, but fascinating nonetheless. Let me know your thoughts. And I know I've been very remiss with the text this morning. 81333. Start your message WM. Let me do some of those. That's right, Shane. On the text this morning says English working class are just lazy. Middle class have always despised the lower classes. Says just no name on that text. I think probably making a. Is that something I said about Jeremy Kyle maybe or something like that? So are you saying I'm middle class or I'm not working? I don't know. I don't know what that one is. It's difficult to put it on a few words on a text, isn't it? Stick your name on, I can give you a mention as well. Rich in Dudley says, as a proud Scotsman in Dudley, I nearly did the voice, I nearly did the accent. I enjoy wearing a kilt to friends' weddings, and I get complimented on them and how smart they are. Maybe I have the legs for it. I'm being proud of the country that I'm from. What's the English alternative to the kilt? Says Rich in Dudley. And there, Rich, lies the problem. I think that's why I was saying, I always feel a little bit, I don't know, is it embarrassed the right word? I don't know, I'm not really quite sure. But when I see people at weddings, and I've never actually had the courage to say this to anybody, and I think, oh, kilt, no, I don't think I would, I'm not really quite sure. But I think, Rich, you're absolutely right. You probably do have the legs for it. You are a Scotsman, and I think that's important as well. There's nothing worse than somebody who's not a Scotsman wearing a kilt. And why would you do that? I don't understand why you do that at all. But the bottom line is, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I'm jealous, because what can I dress up as? What bowler hat, rolled up umbrella, and a briefcase? Imagine taking that look to the disco at the reception afterwards.
Just that?
Yeah, nothing else. Bowler hat,
just the props,
rolled up umbrella, and a briefcase. I'd have no idea why I got arrested. I've no idea.
No, I can't imagine either. We'll take that bowler hat though and hand it around, get some pennies together for your bail.
Do you know what? I'm just thinking. I don't know. I know what that would look like, but what a horrible image you put in everybody's mind.
There's a good job they're not eating or anything. Anyway. Around Sturchley. It's looking rather congested on Pershaw Road. At Cartland Road, there's some roadworks going on around there, so that's the reason why that seems to be queuing in both directions. It's busy still on parts of Bristol Road as you head towards Belgrave Interchange. Right, patchy slow traffic still around the Selly Oak Triangle as well. You'll find some congestion there. The A45 through Sheldon is looking quite slow for some reason as well. Your match day travel sees Villa fans heading off to Leicester for this afternoon's game. The M6, the M69 and the M42, all those routes that you might use to get across to the East Midlands, all looking okay so far. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
You're thinking about me in a bowler hat and nothing else again, are you? I can tell.
Anthony Ford has scored for Walsall.
Friend or foe will share this dream.
It's Thomas with his second, Birmingham City's third.
Let rivalries return. Get behind your team.
The mouth-watering fourth round tie.
Birmingham City against West Bromwich Albion. You always need someone to share every moment.
What a start to the second half for Saido Berahino.
We'll be there till the season's end.
And it's in! It's 2-0! Kevin McDonald!
Your club is our club.
Benteke with a shooting chance and a goal!
The goal horn awaits, my football friend.
The station for commentary this season.
BBC WM 95.6.
Daz Hale with you after me today. Early kick-off with Daz Hale between 12 and 2. And then it is BBC WM Sport's turn to take over the airwaves and bring you live FM commentary, Leicester City versus Aston Villa. That's from 2 this afternoon, right through until 6. So you've got Daz with you from 12 through till 2, and then full WM commentary from 2. Villa away at Leicester City. Thanks for some of your texts today. Von, thank you. Lovely. It's a really nice text. Thanks for for that. I'm glad you've enjoyed the show today. Atom Jit as well, also, thank you very much for your text. Do appreciate that. You make me blush, you little tinker. Vic says, my wife's son taxied in Wolverhampton, but by the time he'd paid his base money, and even though he worked from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, 6 days, nobody should be having to do that, should they, as a work life? He was still unable to make a living. Like all the cabbies, he was himself self-employed, and he earned less than 10 grand a year. 2/3 of that was his base money, says Vic the Blue Nose. Tell you what I don't understand, and this is speaking to somebody who's self-employed. Isn't your base money, though, tax deductible? Isn't that's a business cost, isn't it? So if you get it right when you fill in your tax return and you say actually 1/3 of what I've earned has now become expenditure, I'm presuming taxi drivers don't pay any tax then, do they? Julia why is the test lower for Wolverhampton than Birmingham? Re-taxes, I would have thought it should have been a national standard. That's a really good point. If you get in a taxi in Wolverhampton or Birmingham or Solihull or Coventry or Southampton, you want to know that the person's trained to the same standard, don't you? Shane, what does my head in about the taxis is they always ask me to direct them. A lot of people saying that. We had one earlier. They're saying that Danny Kelly heard this week. Somebody saying they got into a taxi and they went, "Can you put the postcode of where you want to go into the sat nav?" What? That's a bit like going to a restaurant, isn't it? And saying, "Yeah, you'd like that? Okay, can you give us the recipe?" Come on. You'll find the majority of taxi companies do not supply you with a vehicle, and you need to invest thousands as well, says Dave on the text. Some brilliant stuff coming through. Thanks for that. Let's talk to Emil in Sutton Coldfield, who's with us. Hi, Emil.
Hello, yeah, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. You are a taxi driver?
No, I'm not a taxi driver. I'm a computer programmer.
Oh, okay.
But I've done a bit of taxiing and all sorts for a couple of years. Yeah, just wanted to mention about the single parents thing, where you mentioned that there's 500,000 people who are living separately but claiming falsely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can give you a few examples of that which I've experienced over the years. I've got a couple of friends who've got properties who are helped to rent out.
Right.
And what it is I've advertised properties in the past in shops, etc., and I've put DHSS welcome, people on benefits welcome.
Yeah.
And then I credit check them, etc., reference checks with the landlords, etc. On some of them, I've had about 400 to 500 calls, which have mostly been DHSS. I've done like block deals as well. And when I've come to sign the agreement, the ladies always said, "Well, we don't want to show my partner. He's living with us, but I just want the tenancy agreement in my name."
Right.
And, I could have shopped about 400 people each time.
You had 400 or 500 calls of people, right, yeah. and they were all saying that they were, or most of them were saying that they were in that situation when they were living apart and pretending they were pretending to be apart, but they're actually in a couple.
Yeah, and I could have shopped about 400 to 500.
Do you know, I've...
And you know what? The funny thing is, this has happened to a lot of my friends as well who have properties.
Yeah. Do you blame the people? I don't know whether I blame the people or whether I blame the system.
I blame the system and I blame the people as well. I don't blame the people because, things are tight.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And it's very hard to live on... the amount of benefits that are paid. But, then again, there's people like me, who've worked over 25 years.
Yeah.
I'm 48 years of age. And I've been paying taxes since the age of 16.
Yeah.
And, I can't get anything. I've got 3 children. I can't get any benefits.
Yeah. Do you know what? I got to.
It's not fair.
We've just had our. We got cavity walls and they weren't insulated when we bought the house, and I've just had that done for free.
Yeah.
Because and I exactly the same as you. I'm the same age as you, and I've worked all my life and never been out of work, and I couldn't believe that I'd get it for. I thought, and I kept saying to them, "Are you sure that I'm getting this?" Because and it was on because they've got the money to spend, and so if your house was inefficient, they wanted to fix it, and it wasn't about what you were, whatever. But okay, are you sure that I'm getting this for free? So when you do get the opportunity, all I can say to you, Emil, is grab it with both hands, mate, because there are things out there that eventually you will get as well. The interesting, what stopped you from shopping the people? Was it you just didn't want the hassle?
Well, the thing is, I didn't want the hassle, and I did feel sorry for them as well because I mean the amount of benefit paid.
Yeah.
But then again, it's wrong what they're doing. I mean, I'm not that type of person. I didn't really want to get involved in that sort of things.
No.
But I mean, a lot of the landlords, I mean, they're complaining about it. I've got a lot of friends who do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the taxi drivers.
Taxi drivers, yeah.
I've got a lot of friends who are taxi drivers. I mean, once they've paid their rent, which is £100 a week, and their car like £100 a week, they're working about 60, 70 hours, and they're earning about £350.
Yeah.
And out of that, they're paying £200 in expenses.
What expenses? What's?
Well, the rent is £100 a week.
Oh,
and
I'd say.
The car they're hiring is £100 a week.
Do you have any mates? Because somebody mentioned this to me earlier that their son was doing this. Do you have any mates who are taxi drivers who have to pay for the repairs of the vehicle as well, even though it's not their own?
Yes, yeah, because the ones who own their own vehicles, they have to pay for the repairs as well. And some of the taxi ranks are actually charging the drivers for the repairs as well.
Unbelievable.
So what's actually happening is it's a catch-22 situation. A lot of people are thinking we'll go and do the work.
Yeah.
And, we'll earn a decent salary. But the thing is, the number of taxi drivers in Birmingham used to be, a few years ago, used to be 1,000. Now there's 5,000.
Yeah. And I've got to ask you before you go, what's life like in the world of IT? We heard somebody who...
It's completely dead. What's actually happened is, since the year 2000, the British government introduced intercompany transfer visas. I've done a documentary with the BBC on that.
Right.
You can Google it, IT workers crowded out. And they've issued 40,000 visas to people from India since 2000. And I'm applying for about 200 jobs a day, and within half an hour they're getting 300 CVs for each job.
Right.
And then the guys from India are cutting the wages to a quarter of what we're asking for.
So this is the new version of offshoring, isn't it? So when we used to send it all to India, but now we don't need to because we can get the people here.
Yeah, and not only that, what's actually happening is these guys have been brought in from India on intercompany transfer visas.
Right. So you just can't compete with that?
No, you can't compete with it. I've got 25 years experience. The last 7 years, I've been in and out. I've only had about 2 years' work.
Emil,
I can't get any benefits, and all these single parents are out there scrounging and getting it all for free.
You can't win, can you?
I feel like selling my house, putting my money in India, and just going on the benefits.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I was in India recently. There's a lot going on there, building-wise. I think you might be right. Emil, good to talk to you, mate. Thank you so much for that. It's Emil there. That's two IT workers we talked to this morning who are unemployed. And we were talking about why we can't get people to work as taxi drivers in Wolverhampton. It's kind of told its own story this morning. It hasn't been quite interesting, quite fitting, really, that we finish off the show this morning with a taxi driver. Ahmed is from Erdington and joins us on the show. Hi, Ahmed.
All right, mate. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you very much. And you are as well. We couldn't get round without you, fella. Don't you forget that as well. You've been doing it for 30 years, it says here. Is that right?
I wish you come into my cab one of these days, and I promise... Danny promised me, but you know what Danny's like. You don't believe him. He's supposed to be getting he's been in my cab many times.
Danny Kelly has? Danny Kelly can afford taxis?
No, but I don't think he can afford it, but it's very hard to get any money out of him.
Tell me something. Does he get in the cab and go, all right, it's Danny Kelly here. Can I have the journey for free?
No, I knew him. I met him, when you moved from BBC, old BBC, to this new one, and I used to do the shuttle service. I've done it for a couple of months,
Okay,
I know most of... you wasn't there then, was you?
No, they'd sacked me by then. I was well down the road by then, yeah.
I met most of them, and even though there was a program about me, who is in Amin's cab, like a competition, on Danny Kelly, so we've been good friends.
I love it.
I love it. He does a wonderful job.
Come on, tell me, what's it like?
Well, I can't believe what I see because we got too many black cabs, we got too many private hire, and still when you hear things that they want more taxi drivers, and it's unbelievable because you ask anybody on the rank and everybody's complaining because we're not making enough money.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as redundancy in cab trade. You have to just work till you can afford it or till you are fit to drive a taxi. And like somebody said before, we got a lot of expenses to pay. You have whoever you connected with like any taxi. You got to pay them their rent, and then you got to pay wear and tear. And what another annoying part is that people have no knowledge anymore. It's very sad because then, I learned my knowledge test very hard way. I have to go to all Birmingham, but now every other customer is saying, "Do you want the postcode?" I said, "Well, I want a postcode for where you live, where you're going." And most of the places we know because we have done the knowledge test. But there is something very strange because I recently have so many complaints that drivers are taking people the long way and they're asking them to give the postcode, and then they're wasting time in the cab even before they start their journey.
Is it because you're a Hackney carriage, are you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So I just wonder, because as you say, it's very strict how you get your licence. But if you're a private hire, it's not as strict. So I just wonder, is it still that argument between the two?
Well, the only argument I have with the private hire, the people are working illegally, they're picking up. Otherwise, private hire, they got to make a living. I have done private hire for 6 years. But when I'm talking about the standards, because I blame the council, because I don't wonder how these people are passing their tests if they don't know the areas. I mean, there are some examples when people don't even know where Birmingham Uni is.
I know, it's outrageous. Ahmed, I'm going to have to leave it there, mate. It's good to talk to you, and I'm sorry I was never one of the people who's in Ahmed's cab. Maybe I can redress the balance with that one of the days in the future. That's it for me today. Thank you very much. Thanks to Joe and Bernie for looking after me. I'll see you again soon. Iain back in this seat at 9 o'clock on Saturday next week. Whatever you're doing, have a great weekend. Stay tuned. The man who almost looks as sexy as me, the beautifully bald Daz Hale, with you between 12 and 2. And then it's BBC WM Sport. We've got live commentary, Leicester City versus Aston Villa. That's between 2 and 6. That's your afternoon here. Whatever you're doing today, have a great one. I wonder if I'll be able to get a taxi these days. Probably not. Thanks for your company and thanks for all your contacts as well. Appreciate it.
Dicko's onside here and clear of the defender and through on the goal. It's in. Dicko.
Blackburn versus Wolverhampton Wanderers live FM commentary.